Welcome to the Two Abdullahs, your favorite call-in show, featuring your friendly neighborhood ex-Muslim, Abdullah Sameer and Abdullah Gondal.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? It's good to be back after it's been quite a crazy 2-3 weeks. Today's show is gonna take a different approach, and it's gonna be like a masala segment, you know.
Masala means spices for those non-basic.
Garam masala. There's so much that's happened in the Dawah scene. The Quran scandal, the amount of messages I'm getting from people that are leaving Islam, the crazy extent of the variance that's popping up and the new evidences that are coming up. Then Mohammad Hijab's crazy meltdown. Then Farid Leaks scandal from 2016, where Sheikh Ismail Patel uploaded the whole email conversation. To Yasir Qadhi deleting his interview and whatnot. So then we'll touch upon what I wanted to touch upon, because a lot of people have been asking me what are the holes in the Quran. So I'll just briefly mention that we have a very special video coming up probably tomorrow. It's gonna show you some amazing major significant variants. We'll go through that later. We'll touch upon the canonization mess of the Qira'at, and the Qira'at were canonized 2-3 centuries later. But freedom of speech, David Wood eating the Quran, burning the Quran in Sweden. And then we will also talk about the whole idea of how the standard narrative is being challenged by academics on Twitter and the threads and the things they've come out with, the evidence that's popping out that we had no clue, like even it's very new to people. With that aside, Sameer, you can start, hit it off, and let's keep going.
Yeah, so actually, I just want to make a small correction. His name was Ismail Ibrahim, not Ismail Patel. The sheikh or the student of knowledge that spoke about the whole Farid Leaks. So I think a good place to start is the whole Mohammad Hijab meltdown and how that's caused quite an interesting thing. And then let's talk about the debate as well with Apostate Prophet and the whole controversy there. So the first thing with the meltdown was it's quite interesting how Muslims are divided on whether to condemn or not to condemn. It's interesting that nobody's actually, like, no major scholar or group has actually openly condemned Mohammad Hijab for the the clearly sexually gratuitous, implicit comments that he's made about other people's wives. Some of them were activists, some of them were not activists. Hardly any of them, in fact, none of them have a major platform at all. My wife is not even involved in this at all. Your wife has maybe a Twitter and a Facebook. Barely not what you would call barely an active. It's just a nominal ex-Muslim that, is sharing her views. Same with the Apostate Prophet's wife. Same thing with, and then of course David Wood's wife was mentioned as well, and then he deleted that. It's interesting that nobody's condemned, from the Dawah scene, Ayera, Hamza Surtist, Subur Ahmed, all of the gang. You would think that this would be below them, and I feel like the Muslim community standards have dropped. Although if you look at that same individual we're talking about who exposed that it was Farid that did the leaks, he said Mohammad Hijab's behavior is simply unacceptable. He's a student from Medina. So there is some people here and there's small voices, there is responses on Mohammad Hijab's tweets saying, you shouldn't be behaving like this. This is unbecoming of a da'i. You're making us look bad. This is not sunnah.
Actually, just as soon as you said the word da'i, a verse just suddenly popped into my head. I don't know why I remember this. And I know the number for it, 16:125. I think that's the one. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن.
Yeah, you want to translate that? So basically, argue with the best way and use the best speech to engage. And even there's another verse in the Quran that says, "Hey, we actually know Quran. Imagine that. When they insult your gods, you insult the gods, and then they'll insult Allah back. Don't insult the gods, And then there's another verse that says, one of my favorite verses in the Quran. Translate.
Yeah, ahsan. I think it's Surah Fussilat. remove what is bad with what is better, for indeed what is best will turn even your worst enemies into your best friends. Now this is in the Quran, and like Muhammad Hijab is just going on this rant of harassment. What's funny was at the end of it, after harassing my wife, posting pictures of her and sexually suggestive comments, his last tweet was, "I now invite you to Islam." After, I mean,
I know, and that's what he said after all of this degrading, abusive nonsense about Apostate Prophet, calling him a puss and this and that. And then he's saying, oh, you can come back to Islam. It's like, you think anyone, even, like people have said online, including people I know, that if this was the type of behavior that I saw the representatives of Islam doing, I would never have converted to Islam. Like this reprehensible, toxic, abusive, nasty behavior is not going to do anything except to push people away from Islam. And some people like it. Like, David Wood was saying that, he's happy that people are putting Dawah organizations are putting someone like Hijab up front in front of everyone. Everyone can see, like, the way he acted towards Cosmic Skeptic, the way he's acting towards us. It's actually exposed. Like, if anything good came out of this whole debate thing, it's that Apostate Prophet like triggered this guy so badly that he had this meltdown. And yet, the irony is you have people like Smile to Jannah. Yes, I watch your videos. He's making, this thing that says, oh, will he apologize? Will apostate, like, Muhammad Hijab was posting that, will the Christian, condemn David Wood for what he's doing? Yet nobody's condemning Muhammad Hijab. Even in the same sentence that he's saying that, he's silent about Muhammad Hijab, which is strange. I mean, for you to call out and say, like, why don't others condemn David Wood or whatever? Like, what about your own community? Start with your own community. Like, nobody wants to say anything about this crazy behavior from Muhammad Hijab and and it's just like, it's just silence,
Yeah. To be fair, like there were a few people, I'd call out Nero Madaki, one of them on Twitter started a thread. So some people have called out the behavior as unacceptable. Pardon me, but most people were egging him on, and then it became too ridiculous where he was saying Twitter Muslim soldiers. I mean, at this point, somebody make him the cyber Khalifa or something. You can declare jihad.
Yeah, and like if you see, like, Nur Maliki is not a da'i. His profile
He's
says
an academic, yeah.
Yeah, he's like 6,500 followers on Twitter, and he is known by some people, but he's not a da'i. I'm talking about like Muslim organizations. And Muhammad Hijab did have this thing where he said, I'm going to quit now and quit AIDA, and I'm going to now be working for Sapient. So you kind of wonder, like, what is he? Is he just moving from one Islamic organization to another, right? And let me just share my screen here. Like, this is the type of behavior we're getting from the Dawah guys. Like, look at this. Like, this is like so childish. The childishness has just gone to the next level recently. And it's like people are making memes, and the stuff that they're doing is just crazy. It's just so bad. It's just so ridiculous, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that they're putting forward. Like really? Are you for real? Like, and this is considered acceptable. And these guys have the biggest platforms now. These guys, these toxic Salafis, are the ones that are bringing in the young people. People are watching them. And yeah, he did apologize now, and he said that, not every wild action I've done and continue to do is encouraged by Islam.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that he kind of apologized, but then again, like, in his other tweets, he was saying Islamophobes right after. Actually, then he kept going after David Wood after that, and Sam Shimon's wife, and then pulled up his personal court papers. Like, that is just, it's just stooping to another low.
It's so petty that you can actually, I mean, Sam Shimon went to a divorce, and for him to go to his like records online, the court details about, like, why is that relevant to your dawah?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I say like a lot as a Canadian. uh, Obviously, you know, when you have a marriage breakdown, there's going to be issues, there's going to be financial details that need to be resolved. What does that have to do with your dawah? Like, why do you need to bring this? Like, what's the point of bringing this up? And even, you know, this, I feel the same way when I see, like, you know, Adam Saleh exposed, you know, details like that. I'm like, okay, you guys had your personal conflicts, and I don't see how this is relevant for us. You know, this is like,
Yeah.
this is not relevant to the work that we're doing here. We're trying to, you know, we're trying to talk about religion and what is this?
One other thing I just want to add to this is, if Mohammad Hijab thinks that he actually got under my skin, then he's gravely mistaken, because I have dealt with trolls way worse than this from the Pakistani community. And I'll give you a bit of a description of what they do. They will take your wife and your kids' faces and they will Photoshop them on porn stars, and they'll take your to the next level, right? But over time, what happens? You just kind of, you know, whatever. These are trolls, and they kind of lose relevance, and you move on. And I mean, all of this debacle, like, he thinks in his head that he's this macho guy, and he's behaving like a 16-year-old. And one thing I'll tell you more, like, if he thinks I haven't dealt with people like this, is like, I worked in law enforcement for about 3 years. I've arrested 400 people. I've been stabbed twice, and all sorts of things. I've revived 2 people, mouth to mouth, whatnot. But the idea is that this behavior comes off, this thug-like behavior comes off as very, very childish. If anything, I just get a good laugh out of it.
And again, I mean, these are not insignificant people that we're talking about. I mean, that's the crazy thing. We're talking about, like, major, you know, representatives of the Muslim community, like, not of the whole Muslim community, but of the Dawah organizations. With 31,000 followers on, and, you know, a major platform on YouTube, these are not nobodies. These are people that they have put forward to represent Islam, and this is how badly they're behaving. It's sad, right? It's just like, what has happened to the Dawah? Where are the voices, the moderate voices, the reasonable voices? And I almost feel like the reason why they get away with this is because they're picking on ex-Muslims, the worst of the worst. It's almost like when you attack Ahmadis, right? Like, Sunni is going to stand up for an Ahmadi. The same way, like, if you're attacking a gay person, or if you're attacking an ex-Muslim, especially a public, outspoken opponent, the way they see it, an opponent of Islam, which is what we are opponents of Islam, they're like, they see us as like enemies of the state that need to be killed. I mean, just imagine, right? Like, if your religion says it's okay for someone in that situation to be killed, then...
No, Hijab didn't say kill them. He said deport them.
Banishment, right? Banishment.
Which is a new controversy on its own.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the banishment controversy.
I mean, so the apostasy, Hijab's argument is, in essence, that what he does is he says, hey, why are you asking about apostasy laws in Muslim lands? You know, you could technically justify those under liberal social contracts. And so what the issue is that if you're in a liberal society and you go and you do things that are perceived as harmful by that society, you will be punished in some ways. So using that logic, he's utilizing the principle of harm, in essence. And I almost feel like the social order kind of the distraction. The basic fundamental argument is that the Muslim community will perceive the mere speaking out and the expression of belief of atheists as such a big threat to the social order that they deem them necessary to be killed. That's the problem. Their truth, their religion is so scared that it will kill you if you question it. I thought truth doesn't need to be scared of people. I thought it can stand up by itself. In fact, the Quran has a verse. وَقُلْ جَاءَ الْحَقُّ وَزَهَقَ الْبَاطِلُ إِنَّ الْبَاطِلَ كَانَ زَهُوقًا. It's funny that I know these verses. It's, I think, Surah Isra, verse 81, correct the reference. That truth has come and falsehood has perished, for falsehood is bound to perish. The point is that it defeats the whole person. If you're an intellectual, if your argument is whole, you don't need to resort to mafia tactics to, you know, silence dissidents. I mean, the idea of the deportation is some people said he was mistranslating the text, but it's such a fringe opinion. I mean, I could open Reliance of the Traveler, Al-Sarim al-Maslul, wa Shatam al-Rasul from Ibn Taymiyyah, Ash-Shifa by Qadi Iyad, and they're just, those books are actually terrifying to read with the insane, explicit barbarian violence expressed in those by the leading authorities of Islam. And they all unanimously agree that, you know, the apostate should be killed. Most say he's not allowed to be even asked, blasphemer, sorry, he can't even be asked for repentance. Apostates have 3 days to ask, but then they're killed. Um, but yeah, and then there's some really, really scary opinions attributed to really, really big names like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Imam Shafi, Malik, Sufyan Thawri, and all those people.
Yeah, I shared a couple of, you know, and even hijab got quite a backlash for actually saying that. You know, there's a hadith that says it's not permissible to shed the blood of a Muslim except in 3 cases: adulterer, stoning to death, and, you know, killed someone. So, and then, you know, a man who left Islam and this one says and waged war against Allah. So this one says he can be killed, crucified, or banished from the land. So that's one of the 3 options.
One other thing I wanted to add was about the hijab argument. If he says that social harm is a factor that you can utilize to justify it, well, then your argument can be ported to any other society. By that reason, the Chinese government is perceiving enough harm from the Muslim faith, so they're justified in persecuting Uyghur Muslims. This is not my opinion. I'm just hypothetically porting the argument, the logic to work there. This works with, if the state religion, like the Jews, the Germans, Nazis, perceive the Jews as a threat to their social order, they started killing. According to his logic, this follows through. And in fact, it's ironic that when the Meccans were persecuting Muhammad, they actually had every right to do so, because guess what? In Tabari, actually, there's references from Muhammad. I'll read it out for you. People said, "We have never seen the like of what we have endured from this man. He has derided our traditional values, abused our forefathers, reviled our religion, caused division amongst us, and insulted our gods. We have endured a great deal from him." Or worse to that effect. This is from Tabari, actually. If you want, David Wood uploaded this as a reference in one of his videos last night. You can view it on the timestamp, the 7-minute or 6:59 mark. But the point being is that Muhammad was causing social disorder in society because he was preaching his beliefs. So by that logic, Muhammad should have been persecuted, and the Meccans didn't do anything wrong. Now, here's the thing. The only thing that everything hinges on is your faith decides your fate. Because if you have enough faith, you can basically say, yep, my religion is being threatened by your beliefs, and you can basically, anybody can claim this, because it's all supernatural. And then it's all feeling like, if you go look at the book sometimes, even mentioning the name of Allah or Muhammad sarcastically in a joke is kufr according to some people and may land you in blasphemy cases. Now, I'm just pointing it out that some of the jokes these Dawah boys also make on their YouTube channels would be considered kufr by a lot of classical scholars.
Never mind people like Adam Saleh, like the things they say. Like,
why is he involved in all of this? I don't even know. Who invited him?
He's become the new Playboy representative of Islam. I just want to read a few hadith. So we talked about this one. Here's another one where it says there's, you know, a couple of reasons why you can kill a Muslim, and one of them is reverse to kufr after having accepted Islam. So this one actually says he converted to Islam. A lot of people actually born Muslim. And then there's another case of, you know, where again another reference to killing a Muslim who left Islam, and then another one. Okay, and again this one says he can be killed, or crucified, or exiled. So I don't know why Mohammad Hijab didn't mention the crucified.
Oh, I have another one where this Jew was actually in chains, and this one companion came to this one other companion. He said, "Who's this guy?" And he's like, "Oh, he became Jew, and then he left the religion, and now he's an apostate." He's like, "Wallahi, I won't sit with you until you kill him, because the Prophet said so." And then they ended up killing him, even though he wasn't a big threat to the state or anything. Then there was one where Ali burned atheists, and then Ibn Abbas was mad And he said, like, what are you doing, dude? You're not supposed to burn them. You're just supposed to kill them. So, yeah.
Bunch. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, we mentioned those as well. Then there's another one where a Jewish slave lady was stabbed, a pregnant slave lady was stabbed to death by her master because she was disparaging the Prophet, and Muhammad said it's okay. That appears in the Sahih and Abu Dawud.
Yeah, and the four main schools of thought, of course, and that's what people were telling hijab. Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali, as well as even the four Shiite, apparently the four Shiite schools. I'm not familiar with this, but I have a reference that says the Zaydiyah, the Ithnashari, the Al Jafariya, and the Al Azahariya all agree that apostates should be executed. Modern scholars, like you said, Bilal Phillips even said, no compulsion in religion. Hold on, I'll just quote right here. No compulsion to join Islam, but once a person becomes Muslim, then they're obliged to stick with it. There should be a serious and definite decision. This law was made to stop the Jews from confusing the Muslims. Like, why it always goes back to Jews? No matter what you have in Islam, it always goes back to Jews. However, the principle remains to the last day. Okay, so I highlighted that, right? You cannot, so basically, no one's going to go into your home and check if you're Muslim, okay? Unless it becomes something open, like you post on Facebook or something. It's openly caught, they're told to recant and take it back, and then they are not executed. Islam will execute people not just for stealing state secrets, but for something far more serious, rebellion against God. And this guy is a convert to Islam. What irony. Imagine he was in the opposite situation, converted from Islam to Christianity, and like he's actually saying.
What's funny is if Muslims want to enforce their apostasy laws, then there's apostasy laws in the Bible. So if everybody just starts killing their apostates, nobody can convert. Right?
Yeah. And then there's examples of actual executions during the life of Muhammad. You know, we have Al-Harith, Abdullah bin Ubay. There's 8 men who drove, the camel urine hadith. Mikyas ibn Subaha. Okay, so there's even a slave girls. We know about these, right? Abdullah bin Saad, right? So basically, but just to be clear, there are Muslims that do go against. There's only a small section here because
most are like Shafi's neck. I found the hadith actually. If you want me to see.
Yeah,
I'll quickly share the screen.
And I want to just emphasize that most of these scholars today that are saying this are Salafi. So the non-Salafis are the ones who don't really go into the wall, you need to kill apostates. But the Salafi scholars are really like black and white, you need to kill Salafi, you need to kill ex-Muslims. And the thing is, some people are surprised that, before you show the hadith, some people are surprised that Mohammad Hijab said, I don't want an Islamic state in Britain. And I'm not saying they should be killed. Like even the Muslim scholars that do say that ex-Muslims deserve to die, they say within an Islamic state. They never say, like they should be just like caught where we are in a non-Muslim country, because obviously that'll go against the law of the land. So we're not talking about like, vigilante violence, just like murdering people. Although in a Muslim, like as he did say, in a Muslim state, they'd get away with it because they'd be protected by the law, right? And there was this guy I spoke to, Muhammad Amara from Sweden, when he was in Morocco. Like he said, the police state, and the same thing in Pakistan, the police state basically supports vigilantes, right? They're not going to enforce. You can't complain to the police because they're like, they will arrest you and throw you in jail, right? It's not only the vigilantes, the police will do it too, and maybe the police will just let them get away with it, right? Do you want me to share your screen?
Yeah. So, can you guys see it?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So this is the hadith I was talking about, and it's it appears in 2 other places as well. As you can see that, so this guy comes to a prophet. This guy comes to another person. He then sent him as a governor for Yemen. After him, he sent, Muad bin Jabal. When Muad came to him, he said, put on a cushion for him. Here's what gets interesting. He saw that a man was chained with him. He asked, what is this? He replied, he was a Jew and accepted Islam. He then converted to his religion, an evil religion. Hashtag extra points for anti-Semitism. He said, I will not sit until he is killed according to the decision of Allah and his apostles. He said, yes, he seated, I will not sit again. He repeated, said it 3 times. He was really adamant, this guy, to get this guy killed. He commanded for it, and the poor man was killed.
This is Mu'adh bin Jabal. This is the one that the throne of Allah shook when he died, right? This is one of the major.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is one of the major companions, right, of Muhammad.
Yeah.
And this is the religion. So this is a problem. Like when you try to, give a different opinion. I was very happy to see Mohammad Hijab say that you don't need to kill apostates, but you just
yeah, that's good. It's good. It's a step in the right direction.
But it seems like he doesn't have the support of the community, and that's the problem again with Salafism. At least with the scholars like Bin Daya and Hamza Yusuf, and I don't have any other names to mention. This is the only ones I can think of. Who say you don't need hudud law, you don't need capital punishment. Of course, Mufti Abu Layth. He's another one. Oh, my sound is not good. I didn't shoot. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's much better.
Oh, yeah. I had the wrong microphone enabled. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so I was saying Mufti Abu Layth is not mainstream by any means, so that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
He's also against.
All right. So with that aside, I wanted to talk about the whole scandal, like the leaks of the email and what happened actually there. Because
what emails is this?
It's about the leaked emails of Yasir Qadhi that came out in 2016 that lit the Muslim Dawah scene on fire. And then Dawah Man came out with this video series refuting Yasir Qadhi, declaring him on the brink of kufr. And there was this whole storm. And since then, it's been like people have been asking about Yasir Qadhi, what his views are. It's been a scandal, controversial thing. So when Yasir Qadhi comes on Hijab's interview, Hijab, obviously, like the naughty man he is, he keeps pushing him to do it. And he asks about this whole controversy. And when we ended up finding out that one of the people, there was this group set up in 2016 called Knowledge Revival.
Retreat.
Or some people say Knowledge Retreat. We'll refer to it as KR. It was about a group of 90-some students, or a few hundred students, I don't know the exact numbers. And these are academic students or students of knowledge that were dealing with complex matters in Islamic academic studies, like the Ahruf and the Qira'at, right? So some person recommended this one person to be added to the list, and his name was Farid al-Khaja. So Farid al-Khaja goes by the name Farid al-Barahani, and he actually, when he came across the views of Yasir Qadhi, he couldn't refute them, so he decided to share the emails with a well-known academic in the UK. I do not know what he was thinking. Ustad Abdurrahman.
So I just want to show that the dishonest.
We will go through the emails, the snapshots of what Ismail Ibrahim was saying about him, because those are very important to give an idea why he is the way he is. Yeah, sorry.
Just to interrupt right there and show you, like, this was, again, the word in Arabic is amana, a trust. Just basic decency. You're in a private list. You are, responsible to keep the stuff to yourself. And what do? You go and give it to your buddy that's going to make a YouTube video about it.
Well, what's funny was that he gives it to Ustad Abdurrahman, right?
Yeah.
And then he plays innocent in the email list, but then Ustad Abdurrahman turns around and he posted on Dawah Man's and his Facebook that, no, I was approached with the initial intent of this being exposing Yasir Qadhi. There was no agreement of keeping them hidden. But the email conversation, the Sheikh is leaking and Farid is like, yeah, this, yeah, that. Like, I won't apologize because now the thing is dying down. And then 4 years later, oh my God, it's crazy. Like, so many people are leaving Islam because of this. And it's kind of hilarious because Sheikh Ismail, he put it, like, he said that this might be the biggest mistake in the social media Muslim history of all time. Yeah. And he said that these guys in their self-righteousness have, as Mufti Abu Layth put it, have drowned a portion of the ummah completely.
This thing has been causing this idea of these extreme Salafis. It's kind of like McCarthyism, as Yasir Qadhi said. These extreme Puritanists, self-righteous. Yusuf Estes calls them clipboard Salafis. Some people call them Mudkali Salafis. These guys, even when I was Muslim, if I can just share a story to interrupt before we get back to the Farid scandal. When I was a Muslim and I was a Salafi Muslim, I wanted to make sure, you're taught that you have to make sure your deeds are pure and they're not, contaminated with anything. And I had people tell me that I was going to be punished because I had videos of from the wrong Aqidah, so Ashari videos. So I had like Riyad al-Haq. I don't know if you know Riyad al-Haq. He's a famous, probably Brelvi or something, right? And I had his video online. I went to the masjid, I recorded them, I got permission, and it was a good khutbah, right, that he was making. And when I posted it, I had people say, "Oh, you're posting from the wrong manhaj, and you're misguiding people, and this and that." And I am a new Muslim. I wasn't a new Muslim, but I didn't know these little sects and these little schools of thought and stuff. I didn't know about them and the differences, and I was like getting worried. And then I saw another Salafi. And these guys are known as Troid, the reign of Islamic Dawah. They have a masjid in Toronto, and they bash all the Salafi scholars, like the popular ones. They even bash the Salafis. So Abdullah Sameeer, Bilal Phillips, never mind Hamza Yusuf. Hamza Yusuf is like off the chart, like bid'ah, kufr, shirk, haram. I'm talking about bashing Salafi scholars that are not into Mawlid. They don't do any of the grave worship stuff that Sufis. They don't do any of that stuff. Yet even these guys are misguided according to this masjid. They even shut it down because it was so controversial. It was called "Let's Backbite for an Hour," where they were like slandering all of these sheikhs and saying how bad they were. Huh?
Slandering the backbite for an hour.
Backbite for an hour. They had it, and these guys are known for being extreme. But the thing is, they thought that we are the proper Salafis, we are the righteous, guided ones. But they were a plague on the Muslim community.
Oh, yeah.
What they're doing is they're eating itself. The Muslim community is eating itself alive because of these guys, right? And the self-righteousness. It's to this day, Farid still thinks he can debunk Yasir Qadhi.
He actually uploaded a video yesterday or 2 days ago about a 7-year-old lecture of Dr. Yasir Qadhi about Karbala. And then he says that Yasir Qadhi is not okay. He's quoting Shia sources and it's inauthentic. And therefore, you shouldn't listen to him. But then Yasir Qadhi was quoting from the books of Tabari and Ibn Kathir. And then they were quoting Shia sources. So by that logic, you're incriminating Tabari and Ibn Kathir too. So the people in the comments are like, what is going on?
Yeah. What's his name? Gangu Teli now? With his nickname?
Mufti Abu Laisi. I call him Gangu Teli.
It's just the arrogance, like the lack of humility.
Oh, yeah.
Like Yasir Qadhi
pull up that portion of Sheikh Ismail Ibrahim's post about it where he calls him the shaitan in human form.
Oh.
And he actually, Sheikh Ismail Ibrahim said, because how this whole saga played out and how Farid has been since that leak scandal, he said he's trying to like save his own reputation. And he said that Farid suffers from, these are not my words, Sheikh Ismail, from some form of personality, identity disorder or delusional disorder.
like this guy that I don't know what formal knowledge he has. If you can say anything about Yasir Qadhi, he's studied Islam in detail, like for 10 plus years at the Salafi institutions, not in Mauritania in the desert like Hamza Yusuf. When I have a great respect for Hamza Yusuf as well as a scholar in his own right, we're talking about in the same institutions that Farid and the Salafis respect, Medina. Like these guys went through the you know what I mean? Like the Saudi brainwashing factory, which is known as Medina. And he graduated from that, and still he's not good enough, because of the things he's saying. And this is what academics do. And this is what in my opinion, Yasir Qadhi has a bright mind, and he just cannot be limited by the dogma. The dogma is breaking. His mind breaks out of the dogma.
That Yasir Qadhi is too good for the Muslim community. He's too ahead of his time. Straight up.
I would say that, yeah. So yeah, you want to get back to the Farid story? What happened there?
Yeah, so Yasir Qadhi obviously does not like Farid, and he's blocked them and whatnot. But those snippets from Sheikh Ismail, because who Sheikh Ismail is, he says that he's a Medina graduate, and he has an ijaza in Qira'at, and so he studied the Ahruf and Qira'at, and he was actually calling Farid an amateur, and literally saying that this guy, just do not listen to him, he's got nothing worth to say. And honestly, he's made a bunch of videos about us too, and it's kind of almost the same problem. But when this email scandal came to light, it all made sense. As the distortion of evidence is what I've been saying. He keeps clipping arguments, and he'll exclude the best parts of the argument. Like if the argument is sustained on like 10 points, he'll show 2 points, refute those, and say like, yay, and this stuff. Like, and but anyways, that's the thing. So I want you to show the email conversation.
Yeah, sure. And I'm gonna say about this idea, this thing. You know, it was interesting when we watched the Yasir Qadhi interview with Mohammad Hijab. He was talking about Farid, but we didn't know that he was talking about Farid because he was saying the same things, that they pick on little things. That, you know, these guys, what they do is they don't look at the big picture of the argument. They'll just focus on specific little things, and this is how they think the debunking, the whole culture is built on debunking others. And let me just find the email. Which you want me to just find a link with all of the emails? Okay, hold on. Is it this one? I think I found it.
I'll look for it.
Okay, here we go. Let me share my screen. Tell me if this is the one you're talking about. Is this one?
No, it's the one before.
The one after that? Before that? Okay.
Yeah.
I found it. Okay, here we go. The email leak, right?
Oh yeah, there you go.
I'm just gonna say that even this guy who knew all along that Farid was responsible for this mess, he was, you know, trying to protect him up to a certain point. Until, you know, he just kept going and going and going. And eventually he said, okay, I need to let people know that this is where everything started, right? Like this whole thing is not Yasir Qadhi's fault. Yasir Qadhi was just being him. He's just being an academic. Like, you guys made this thing into a public issue, right? And, you know, it happens, right? So
yeah, there was this, the emails, I'm looking at them too. So he went, he starts by saying, oh, I didn't know. He plays very innocent in the beginning, but you can see from the get-go, Sheikh Ismail is not taking any of it. And he's like, no, like you have to apologize to these people. As you'll see in the next correspondence, the tone. We're not obviously going to read through it, but you can see that he listed a bunch of conditions and stuff. Keep going down. Yeah,
so and then he is like, yeah, I don't care about my reputation.
Yeah, his whole egotistical approach to things, you know.
And again,
like you said, Sheikh Ismail is giving him time, opportunities. But what something interesting happens if you keep going down is when Farid tells him that he might have sent the email to more than one person.
And he also says, I never agreed not to share what was in the list, right?
And Farid then calls him out saying that, oh, there's no conditions saying that I shouldn't be sharing the emails, but then Sheikh Ismail will come with the clause that was sent to him about the group. You're not allowed to do it, but he still did it. There you go. He did write a small apology to the group as well, but the group was like, why is he referring to Abdurrahman Hassan as an academic? And then people were making fun of him because they said that if we thought you were referring to Dawah Man and his co as serious academics, we would never have let you in on this group anyways. We can keep going down, but there's this one part where he'll ask him seriously.
This is the apology.
Yeah, this is the apology email that was sent to the members. As you can see, I discussed this issue with an academic who then asked, I assume that this was for the purpose of responding to those arguments made. And if you go down, what's interesting.
So right away now, even before we go there, right? This is what we call a cover up, right? They didn't want people to know these things.
I'm just waiting for when you find that Facebook link in the next few emails. So here, however, something there is I'm realizing things are more complicated than they may seem. Oh, Farid, what happened? What did you do? Okay, he's giving him a 12-hour deadline. People are horrendously confused. People private contact me about ARH as an academic.
People don't realize in 2016, the same thing that's happening now on a smaller scale happened in 2016.
Oh yeah.
This is why this thing it didn't die. It stayed alive from 2016 until now. People have been asking Mohammad Hijab. Mohammad Hijab made a poll on his website or something, on his YouTube, and number one question was about Qadhi and this issue.
So So once we go down further, Farid's like, I will not be held accountable. I will not be given what to do. Yeah, so here's interesting. I haven't spoken to whom I send the emails to in a week. Okay. I don't think you are in any position talking, throwing other people under the bus when you had no qualms in throwing Yasir Qadhi under the bus. Oh my God. Okay, let's go down.
Right.
Oh yeah, the next email. The next email is the Facebook link. So up to this point, Farid has been saying, yeah, he never intended the emails to be leaked. He just wanted the points to be given to him so he can refute Yasir Qadhi. But now click on that Dawah Man post.
Uh-huh.
All right, so this is Abdurrahman Hassan, and he says, I was approached by a third party about Yasir Qadhi's emails. I was asked to expose them for the world to see how deviated he had become. My initial reaction was to keep them private because he didn't publicly come up with his doubts. Nonetheless, I asked the third party to put me in touch with the brother who had access to these emails of Yasir Qadhi so I could take a look at them for myself. Once the brother sent the emails, he requested me to research the doubts Yasir Qadhi had mentioned.
Oh, like these guys are going to be able to like look into the level of, you know what I mean? Like it's almost funny, like these dogmatic Salafis that, like, you know, they're at stage 1 of the Quran preservation. They're accepting what they've been told, because that's what it means to be a Salafi. So honestly, like Bukhari, we trust Bukhari. That's what Farid says. Right? That's what all these guys say. We trust the scholars, and there's a consensus of the ummah that Bukhari is the most authentic, and Muslim is the second most authentic. And you know, this is what it means. You don't dig into these things. You don't try to break apart, because once you break it apart, you can't put it back together, right?
Yeah. So what? If you go further, it gets worse. So once the brother sent go up again a little bit. Yeah. Once the brother sent the emails he requested to me to research the doubts of Yasir Qadhi had mentioned, apart from this discussion, nothing else about keeping the emails secret and private was mentioned whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. This information is incorrect or misrepresentation of the truth. So this guy says that Farid approached him and he, from the get-go, wanted Yasir Qadhi exposed. But on the other side, Farid is saying, no, I was just sending him the emails to get answers. I never wanted it exposed or this public fiasco and whatnot. But at the end, like, go back out of the emails, I just want to show the other post of this Sheikh Ismail where he calls Farid delusional and calls him shaitan in human form.
Is it down here in the same emails?
No, it's one of his posts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting, like how far this has gone. Do you have
I found it? Yeah. So I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Application window. All right. So this is the post. He says, "Oh yeah, sure. Give me 1 minute."
Control plus on your keyboard.
Yeah. So he he criticizes Farid. Then he really is a shaitan in human form. One very and calls the Dawah kid and the Ustad Abdurrahman and stuff. Shame on him, his co-leakers, his partners in crime, his jahil dimwit. Who cares?
Yeah.
Then he also criticizes him for planting this clip from Sheikh al-Judai and whatnot. Anything. And here's what's important, or he says, the issue is with Farid Leaks' ethical and moral blunder, in which he has been drowning since 2016 and has been desperately trying to rehabilitate himself ever since. He got his window of opportunity after Yasir Qadhi's hijab interview and has been going off on one ever since. So nobody's attention goes to his catastrophic mistake. A mistake that will probably go down as one of the worst errors of judgment in Muslim social media of all time. To ensure no soul's attention is duped by Farid Leaks' present tirades, and to make sure nobody forgets what happened in 2016, see my next post, which we already looked at. Readers themselves can judge the contrast in his story tone back then and the muscular tone he's flexing now. On that evidence, he might have a case of dissociative identity disorder or some form of delusional disorder. I'll stop at that, and people can make up their own mind. And what happened there, that wasn't my words. That's the respected sheikh who went to Medina who's saying this about Farid. Let's move on from Farid. Enough of Ganguteli and his leaks, Farid leaks.
It just goes to show you another major doubt that causes another thing that causes Muslims doubt is all of this infighting. You know, people are like, they don't know, like lay Muslims, I'm telling you, I know lay Muslims, and they don't know what to make of these things. When they start getting exposed to a little bit of this like fighting, not just like Shia Sunni, but even within Sunni, there's like, you know, there's people that follow madhabs, there's people that don't, there's the Salafis. Then, you know, these type of problems, they don't know, a lot of them don't know how to solve them. They might have been taught a certain Islam where they put the hand, you know, below the thing, and then they meet a Salafi's like, you know, I have to hold it up here, you have to hold it like this, or you have to move your finger in the prayer. And these are just small things, small examples I'm giving, but they tend to accumulate and overwhelm over time, right?
Exactly.
You know, like, and the Hadith says there's going to be 72 sects, and you know, all of them are going to go to hell except for one, which is my, you know, whatever.
The one that hangs on to the Sunnah.
Yeah, something.
Actually, because this is actually relevant to the discussion, the holes in the narrative. I will actually want to, because we're gonna go in that direction.
Yeah.
Have Sheikh Ismail explain what the holes are through Farid's own words.
Yeah.
Okay. Because so we'll just look at that. I'm actually gonna share my screen. All right. So some statements by none other than the genius that is Farid Leaks. Before his leak on the topic of Quran and Qira'at, he was a complete amateur, and he still is. These are some strong words, man. My opinion is that the rasam was ijtihad from the Sahaba. Yes, so he's trying to say that the oral tradition is prime, and then they use that to deduce the rasam, not from the
rasam is the skeleton.
The skeleton, yeah.
So basically, without the vowels.
So Farid said, there is no doubt in my mind that this matter is the toughest issue to grasp in Islam. This means that he obviously has issues and doubts because of this as well. Farid, so watch out for our video tomorrow. We're going to be uploading some great reconstructions of the Sana Quran. Hijab you too, because you like the variants too, because you keep saying you can bring any mushaf and no amount of evidence will show you that the Quran is not preserved. So he says, the traditional point of view can be at times hard to swallow. If that is not synonymous or a similar thing to Yasir Qadhi saying that standard narrative has holes in it, this is from Farid's words. Then he says, I would like to remind you, and then he goes on to harass or be rude to a couple of the PhD students, I believe, for their dissertation. And this is one actually very important thing. Differentiating between the Quran and Qira'at leads to an even more important question. How is it possible to attain access to the Quran through any means other than the Qira'at? But I'll stop here because then we have a video and we can talk about the holes and...
Let's talk about that a little bit. Oh, no, put your screen back on for 1 second.
Sorry.
I think that was very interesting. A very interesting question that kind of gets to the heart of it. Just read it out to me. The very last point he made.
Okay. Differentiating between the Quran and Qira'at leads to an even more important question. How is it possible to attain access to the Quran through any means other than the Qira'at?
Okay, so basically what this is asking is, what we have today is the Qira'at. The Qira'at are the recitations. And there's either 7 or 10 or 14 based on whose opinion you want to take.
There's 20, 30, 40 sometimes.
So the recitations that we have today, they are human effort, meaning just like Hadith has a chain of narration, the Quran has a chain of narration too, going back from one person's teacher to another person's teacher to another person's teacher. And a good ex-Muslim friend that came out recently, John Del Vento, has actually had a very big interest in this, and he's talking about this as well on his channel, that without the written, like some of this stuff is not written, like the vowels, for example, right? So how can you know whether it truly goes back? That's one problem. But even with the written Qira'at, what you have with the Qira'at is you have basically a chain that goes back, and as Marjan Van Putin was saying on Twitter, none of the Qira'at are mutawatir, meaning, so even with Hadith and with Quran, there's something called mutawatir, which means like mass transmitted. So basically, when someone says a Hadith is mutawatir, it means it's mass transmitted to the point of it cannot be false. Now, again, this is kind of dumb, to be honest, in the first place, because if you had 50 people tell you they saw an elephant, on the moon or something, that doesn't make it true. It just means you need to investigate a little bit further, right? The Quran has, some things which are the story, they might, just because multiple people said it doesn't make it true. But let's put that aside. None of the Qira'at are mutawatir, meaning mass transmitted, right?
Actually, what's interesting is Dr. Shadi Nasser from Harvard University. One of his book is actually very, very good. The variant transmission of the Holy Quran, and he says that I'll actually quickly explain what happened with the canonization of the Qira'at very briefly. So up till Ibn Mujahid's time, there wasn't really a concept of how many Qira'at are authentic. There was no standard, and this is happening like the 10th century. So it's 2-3 centuries after Muhammad and after the Rasul. So after Osmanic standardization, right? So what's happening is before Ibn Mujahid there were works. Some people would bring 10 Qira'at, some people 4, 5, whatever, right? And even right before Ibn Mujahid lived Tabari, right? And Tabari wrote a whole book on the Qira'at in which he brings 20 readings, okay? But that book got lost. Now, people say that he died just before, so Tabari died just before the canonization of the Qira'at, meaning when Ibn Mujahid canonized them into 7, okay? So what ends up happening is Tabari and scholars like Zamakhshari, they actually criticized Qira'at back in the day because back then there was no standard canon of 7 and whatnot. So they would criticize Qira'at, and actually Zamakhshari and Tabari called some of the Qira'at repugnant and stupid and bad grammar. But those same Qira'at, a few centuries later, attained the status of divine revelation.
So the canonization, when you say the Qira'at are canonized, the 7 or the 10 or the 14, based on whichever opinion you want to take, what we mean by that is that Muslims believe that these 10 are all from Allah. Yet you're saying that these same, let's say 10 or 14 or whatever, have been basically criticized for being like bad grammar and whatever. Even the number of 10 is Ibn Mujahid's opinion, that he came up with 10, right?
No, that's correct. That's Jazari's. Ibn Mujahid was the one who made the number to 7, and that confused the narrative to mean the Qira'at equals to the 7 ahruf. Right? And what's interesting is how subjective the selection was. So firstly, moving back to the Tabari point, if Tabari is criticizing the Qira'at, then that means and if you later scholars believe that those all are divine, then Tabari is criticizing the speech of Allah. But if he's criticizing the speech of Allah, that means that it can't be divine because the speech of Allah cannot have mistakes and cannot have bad grammar, right? So what also ends up happening is Ibn Mujahid has a bunch of readings, so he also has to exercise ikhtiyar, which means his preference, because he has too many to choose from. So he chooses one from one in each major city, but then at the last city, the populace is divided as to whose reading is the most popular. So he chooses 3 from the same city. So that ends up leading to the total of 7, which confuses people. But Ibn Mujahid was criticized.
I have to that right here, right? So this is Dutton's paper, and he says that basically he chose 1 reader from each of Medina, Makkah, Damascus, and Basra, and 3 from Kufa, We don't know why he chose 3 from Kufa, but as he was living in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, it could be that he was just familiar with the local tradition and made it difficult for him to choose just one. So he's like, yeah, I'll take 3. You know, the Iraqis are pretty good at Quran. Can't decide one of them. I pick 3 of them, right?
What's also hilarious is, so when he chooses 7, right? A few centuries, I think it's Ibn Jazari, when he comes around, he's like, no, it's not just 7 that are authentic mutawatir. It's 10 that are authentic and mutawatir. And then when something funny happens is, 2 decades later, so Jazari's view gets popularized and 10 become the divine word of God. But then 20 years of Jazari is like, I retract my view, and I don't think they're all actually mutawatir. They only have singular sahih chains, but nobody paid attention to that. His retraction mostly were already caught on to this, all Qira'at are equally valid and equally Quran. But yeah, there's so many holes. And one of the issues is as well, that the authenticity of the narrators themselves. Like, so if you were to, actually, I should show you the video clip from one of my presentations that I did from Dr. Shadi Nasser, and he shows you what the Hadith scholar said about Hafs and Asim, one of the biggest transmitters of the most popular Quran today. By the way, here's the funny thing. Back in the day, these scholars, the Tabari Zamakhshari, prior to the canonization part, these people did not consider the Qira'at all to be revealed word of God, but they actually did see that these were the ijtihad of the readers, hence they were criticizing it. Tabari also says
ijtihad meaning
their own interpretation.
The best effort, basically.
Their best effort, yeah, with their knowledge. Then the other issue was with Tabari. Tabari says that all the Quran we have now is one of the 7 harf. That Osman standardized the Quran into 1 harf. So that implies that 6 out of the 7 ahruf were lost or destroyed. But did Allah tell Usman to destroy them, or did he destroy them on his own accord? So it's a mess.
It's a mess. And the video that's coming out, that guys, we're gonna upload it hopefully tomorrow, or late, probably not tonight, probably tomorrow.
I'll give you a teaser for it. Let me just pull out 1 or 2 variants. Basically what we did was, what happened was that before the standardization of Osmanic text, there were many companion codices. This is attested to by the variants and a lot of oral tradition as well, like books like Kitab al-Masahif and whatnot. And what we have, we were able to do when we found the Sana Quran, we were able to find something peculiar. It is a palimpsest, meaning that it has 2 layers to the text. So the lower text was also a full Quran manuscript that was rubbed off to write the Osmanic text on top, and over time the layer of the ink came up, and you can extract the lower text using UV light. So when you actually reconstruct some of the verses, from what you can see, I took them from Sana 1 and the Origins of the Quran paper, where they wrote down the reconstruction. It's quite significant, some of the changes. Like, it's one of them I'll show you, like a meaning change. The Mosque, in this modern Quranic text, it says, إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرُ مَسَاجِدُ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةَ. So which means the mosques of Allah are only to be maintained by those who believe in Allah and the last day. But that phrase does not exist in the Sana lower text at all. In fact, there's a completely different phrase with a different meaning. It says, and do jihad, wajahada fi sabilillah, like fight in the way of Allah, jihad, or struggle in the way of Allah. But that is, in the Quranic context, not at all similar to establishing prayer and giving zakat. You could try to interpret a struggle, but in the context of the Quran, and if an Islamist or jihadist is using this, this could be used as a justification for Islamism. I'll show you one more before we wait for the video. This one's quite interesting. Like, there is a lot of variation in terms of the sentence structure. I'll read it for you. The standard Quran text is Inna anzalna at-Tawrata fiha hudan wa nuran yahkumu biha an-nabiyyun alladhina salamu lillazina hadu war-rabbaniyuna wal-ahbar. But the lower text reads, it switches the hudan wa nur, so they're transposed. Fiha nuran wa huda, فَيَحْكُمْ بِهَا الْأَنْبِيَاء instead of نَبِيُّونَ. So it's a synonym. Now, one of the problems is if you were to read the classical scholars' works, and you can find the find them in Arabic, especially, they are very, very strict about this, that you can't even use synonymous words sometimes, or using a synonym would be lying upon Allah and whatnot. What's interesting is the earliest Islamic scholarship had no issues with these variants and whatnot, and these are all documented. But then there was a shift where the later scholarship started seeing all of these variants, all of these qira'at as divine, and that caused a lot of issues. Anyways, then it goes on. In the Sana Lord text, الَّذِينَ سَلَمُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا يَحْكُمُونَ بِمَا نَزَّلَ اللَّهُ فِيهَا وَيَحْكُمُ بِهِ. The sentence structure is quite vividly changed. There are many, many more. We'll show you about 9 or 10 variations from just the lower text. There are hundreds. Like, there's no page of the lower text that doesn't have a variation. In fact, I'll explain to you how we arrived at that. I'll try to get the paper open so I can show you where the reconstruction is. And all right, so I'll share my screen again. Just wait for 1 second. Application on the share. Okay, can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a paper. It's very, very important. Most of the first. Yeah. Zoom in. Yeah. So what I am gonna do is go down to the part where they reconstruct. This is a catalog of the folios and the verses that are there. They're referenced on the pictures. So this is what I've been doing basically for the past 2 or 3 days, and a couple of other people's helps and whatnot. So this is the lower text of the Sana Quran, and you can actually put the modern text next to it in a side-by-side window, and you can kind of try to read it. And like every verse, every second verse has a problem with it. I mean, like some verses have so many issues in one verse. Like there's these verses. We will mention it tomorrow, but I'll say this, that the verse 80 of Surah 9 is very problematic, and like the 60 to 70% of the verse has variation in 3 manuscripts. Wait for that for tomorrow, but just to give you an idea, this is how it was reconstructed and whatnot. You can access this paper and read it for yourself when we come up with a video tomorrow. Also, the idea that this the Sana Palimpsest is a student copy is outright rejected by academics, and Asma Hilali's theory is really not taken seriously because of many factors. We will talk about this in our video tomorrow as well, and people like Martin Van Putten have criticized Asma Hilali's viewpoint as well, alongside many others.
Yep. Right.
All right.
And yeah, I'm gonna open up the thing for questions because we don't have a specific list of things to talk about today. So if anyone wants to call in, please do call in. We will take questions. And what's the next thing we wanted to discuss?
All right, so those were some of the holes in the Quran, just to show you guys that, you know, what can why is this a big problem, like, and why this is blowing up. The next thing was I want to talk about the weirdness of hijab's obsession with the sexual fantasies. It keeps coming up with, like,
oh my God.
I mean, it's like he was talking about gimps, golden showers, whipping, caging, and like half of the terms, like, I don't even know about. Like, why does he know about all this stuff? He shouldn't. Apparently he's a Muslim. Why is he so knowledgeable about sexual and bondage fantasies?
Oh my God. Yeah.
That was very weird. But actually, the that meltdown, like, holy, so he gave this lecture trying to rescue the standard narrative, and he comes up adopting a kind of like a hybrid view of Tabari, saying that, oh, the Quran we have is one harf and the rest were abrogated, and he uses that to place the Quran in an unfalsifiable spot, saying that if you bring me any manuscript in the world, any variation, no matter what, I'll just dismiss it, saying it was a possible harf that was abrogated.
And
like, come on, dude.
this is an important point that when you're talking about things that matter, if it's not falsifiable, that basically means, it doesn't mean it's false. It just means that it's not true or false, because you can't prove it wrong, right? Like if I say there's an invisible creature that's telling me what to say, there's no way to falsify that, and so it's a worthless statement, right? In the same way, we put truth value on statements that can be falsifiable, right? Something that you can test, you can verify, you can confirm whether it's true or false. Like I'll give you another example. When Apostate Prophet brought up the whole idea of the jinns, he said basically the Quran says that the stars, the shooting stars, are chasing the jinns. I don't use examples like that because that's an unfalsifiable statement. There's invisible creatures that are followed by stars, but you can point out from a different perspective. From a scientific perspective, you cannot debunk that because it's not a scientific statement. It's a statement about the unseen, the knowledge of the unseen, the ilm al-ghaib, as Muslims will call it.
It's just that the explanation is weird,
Yeah.
because it then means that every shooting star is actually, or not every one of them, maybe, perhaps not. I don't know
Well,
if
the
it's,
shooting stars are described in that way. So, of course, I remember when watching Cosmos by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I was just kind of a new ex-Muslim at the time, maybe, or maybe not yet. And he was talking about how the comets and how every single culture sees the comets in some sort of like supernatural way. And now we can predict when the fucking comments are gonna come.
Yeah.
So
we know when Allah's gonna throw the shooting star.
Well, the comments are not the same as the shooting stars, but like better example, based on similar to what you're saying, the eclipses. Muhammad said in the Hadith that eclipses are there for Allah's servants to be scared and make pray for until Allah takes away, and it's called Salat al Khusuf or something.
Yeah, they turn their hands upside down and pray.
The fear prayer. It's translated the fear prayer, meaning, just imagine the blackness comes over the whole sky. 7th century Arabia, you're like, holy shit, Day of Judgment's coming now. You don't know that the planets, the moon is between the sun and the earth, and you don't know that it's when it's gonna. But now, the rationalizer. Shout out to the rationalizer, one of the guys that had a huge impact on me before I left Islam. He made a video and I was amazed. He said he looked at the calendar, the NASA calendar of eclipses, and he said 632. This was probably the eclipse that Muhammad was talking about in this hadith.
Yeah,
that away. Like science can tell you when the eclipse happened in Muhammad's life.
And
it will happen in my children's lives. Like, that is amazing.
One of the funny things I remember reading was the signs of the Day of Judgment, that 2 eclipses will happen in the month of Ramadan or something, and then the Mahdi will come or something like that. Also, to correct myself earlier, I said that they turned the hands upside down. That's, I think, for the prayer for rain, not for the solar eclipse.
Whiteness of his armpits when they used to lift up arms or something.
Yeah,
there's some funny prayers, in Sunni Islam. and even the prayer for when somebody dies, it's like Allah, it's like a lot of
yeah.
So anyways,
I was talking about the hijab meltdown. So one of the things he said was, he kept saying that all of you Orientalists are taking all the information from me. I am your teacher. Uqsum billah. Wallahi, I know you guys are scared. I'm shaking. You need to use the toilet. Like, come on, dude. Stop projecting your own insecurities to the world, your own doubts. Then he starts swearing at Muslims who have actual doubts. Because this is a very valid point. If a scholar like Yasir Qadhi said that he has doubts, and this is an important issue, Farid is saying that this is one of the hardest matters to swallow, and the traditional viewpoint is hard to swallow, then why are you yelling at the average Muslim who will inevitably have doubts from this, when Yasir Qadhi's the whole point of him telling you this, don't push me, it's not wise to discuss this. Why are you yelling at them? You're calling them imbeciles, stupid, jokers watching Netflix. fake Muslims,
So
weaklings, fake
basically, they could study to the level of Yasir Qadhi and they will still have doubts. Yet you're saying it's because they watch too much Netflix.
And I mean, at this point, like, he can even say that Yasir Qadhi has doubts, so therefore he's a weakling, he's an imbecile. How dare
Watching too much Netflix, eh? Hey, James, how's it going?
how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Actually, just before we start, are you the same James that was in a video where Adnan Rashid talking about the mathematical error in the Quran? Oh,
Yeah.
you're the one.
Oh,
Okay.
you were speaking going with Adnan Rashid.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that. That was very well done,
didn't
like the
see
way
that.
you did the math and then how they cut the video and they didn't show your explanation, started off after on their own channel. Anyways.
Fun.
Hey, so yeah, so what do you have? Yeah, I saw your comments. It made a good point. There are examples where the Quran does actually intersect with science, and it makes falsifiable statements. For example, the Quran in 2130 talks about the heavens and earth being split. I think that is a really good example. If I was going to bring up an example in a debate of science going wrong in the Quran, I think 2130 is a perfect example where the heavens and earth being split. There's no heavens and earth being split. The earth never existed back then. It came later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a question for Abdullah Gondal about I saw the slides that you have uploaded on Harris Sultan's site, and I think you went through part of that as a presentation with like Apostate Prophet, but it seemed like you didn't have time to go through the commentary on Kitab al-Masahif and Shadi Nasser's book. So I was wondering if you had in store kind of to sort of, I know.
We are actually planning. Well, tomorrow's video, what we're doing is we're trying to show one of like the hardest hitting variants from the Sana Quran, a couple of other manuscripts, and then the modern Qurans, about 50 variants. But we're not critiquing the details of the narrative itself. We're just going to talk about the variants and their own implications. But we do plan on turning this into a series where we'll go through the history of canonization, about like how Ibn Mujahid selected and the details in Dr. Shadi Nasser's book as well. I was actually gonna do one thing. A project was to take the variants in Kitab al-Masahif and then turn them into reconstructed slides, because the ones in Kitab al-Masahif are insane. Like they're just whole verses, completely new verses, 2 surahs in some guy's codex and whatnot. I saw that comment. Sorry, I was giggling. Yasir Qadhi watched too much. But yeah, no, we'll definitely have something coming out for sure.
Okay, cool. And one other question I had was that so people have been sort of quite excited about this Yasir Qadhi saying, you know, that the standard narrative has holes, and he kind of references Shadi Nasser's work. But it seems to me that kind of already with the kind of critiques and variations and troubling kind of narrations about companions differing with each other and verses being lost that you put out in a sort of whatchamacallit, a presentation about a couple of years ago, it seems to me that like Shadi Nasser's work only presents a kind of new problem if you're already suppressing your kind of critical reasoning enough to just put all that stuff to the side. So like you have to already have kind of a failure of critical thinking in order to sort of accept the 7 Aruf kind of claim and accept that the canonization or standardization of the Uthmanic text is just like, oh yeah, that's fine. So like, do you think that kind of, you know, that I know that there might be a risk of like, yes, it's cool that Shadi Nasser shows yet another kind of sort of problem with the narrative, but kind of that problem is already kind of downstream of a lot of other problems that are equally kind of hard-hitting or more hard-hitting.
Yeah, so what I feel is like one of the funny things is if the Quran was revealed in these different modes, the Quran never mentions it itself explicitly. It appears in Hadith, what could be traced back to the 2nd generation, maybe. They say it's an early Hadith that was widely circulated. But again, one of the other things you see is not a lot of the Sahaba knew about this Ahruf thing. If Omar saw one guy recites it differently, he literally would grab the thing and he dragged him. He was about to almost fight the guy.
Yeah.
Why was Umar not aware that the Quran is revealed in different ways? And the same thing with Ubay ibn Ka'b, and then he had this doubt about the Quran and the Prophet and that. And then Abdullah ibn Abi Yasir left Islam because he was like, write this or write that and write that, they're all the same. Then Muhammad's like, well, which one do you want me to write? He's like, write whichever one you want to describe, right?
And even after kind of Muhammad was dead, he's still like, if it's after Muhammad's died, you will have expected this kind of a sort of revelation about there being 7 modes or 7 aruf to be, you know, it's that was in the past, and so everyone should know about it. But even afterwards, you still have like companions saying, you know, the way I recite it, kind of trust me, the way I recite it, the way Zayd's codex, it's like stupid, that sort of thing. So
exactly, yeah,
it still doesn't add up.
In fact, like if I remember correctly, Ibn Masud's reading was being used up till like the 9th century in some parts of the Muslim Empire, post Uthman standardization, right? And like I said, like at this point, what could one say that, because so many holes that, for example, the hadith that comes to my mind was Abdullah bin Mas'ud once said to the people of Baghdad, I think, that do not take the mushaf from this man Zayd bin Sabit, for he was in the loins of his father when I was hearing the Quran from the mouth of the Prophet. And it's so bizarre when you see this infighting at the most earliest part, right? And then there's one part where Omar says in a hadith that Ubay's codex has so many things in it that we do not recite. But Ubay says, I'm not going to rub them off even though they were abrogated because they were revealed and I don't want to lose the verses. So there was this discrepancy too, but because these Sahaba, if you were to look at the codex of Ibn Masud and all these, they still incorporated the abrogations because they wanted to keep them known. So why did Uthman override and burn it on his own initiative, right? So there's this whole conflict in the Sahaba and whatnot. So yeah, like you said, it's just too many holes. And it's like a snowball effect. It kind of keeps going and going till Uthman standardized it and somewhat made it better.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting as well just how shaped these religions are by political forces. I mean, even when you read, you know, Sean Anthony's book and about the Sirah and how it was, you know, the people that preserved the Sirah, the people that had the money for the parchment and the paper and for it to be like mass produced, they were political like leaders, right? And they didn't want to promote, you know, a story that would go against their family, right? Like Uthman, you know, when the Umayyads were in charge, they didn't want to be praising Ali. And there was this bias, this political bias as well, right? And it's interesting that, you know, when you're Muslim, you don't think about any of this. You just see Islam as this thing from God. But when you start to really dig into it, it's so shaped by human hands, which is why I've said this before. I think that if Muhammad was alive today, I think he wouldn't recognize the Islam of today. The Muslims of today, the Islam they follow, it's completely, I don't want to say whitewashed, but like it's so different than what he would. It's just totally different. And the way that people see Islam today, like for example, they think halal food is some sort of like, you know, it's more clean and it's better for the animal and blah blah blah. Like he was pretty much just saying, you guys slaughtered in idols' names, I slaughtered in my God's name. You know, Allah is this jealous God that doesn't like idols to be slaughtered in his name, in other gods' names. So I'm slaughtering. Allah loves when you do the Hajj sacrifice, you're slaughtering, you're appeasing this God. It's so different than what modern Muslims think when they think about, you know, the religion. And it's just like halal food is, even sometimes you hear non-Muslims saying halal food is better, and I'm like, come on, give me a break. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about pleasing God, like this invisible deity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to add anything else before we move on to AP and Mohammad Hijab debate?
Yes, please. Just one quick one.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you know the Ismail Ibrahim post where the one that you showed, like kind of Quran preservation, apostasy, blame, that sort of thing. He lists out about 9 what he calls damaging myths that Muslims shouldn't be told anymore. And like one of them he lists as
I think pull that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to share that actually, but yeah, let's talk. Go ahead, keep explaining a question while you look it up.
So like one of them he kind of lists as the rasm is from mankind. I think the rasm isn't divine. He says like the consonantal skeleton isn't divine. So that's like admitting that the consonantal skeleton has sort of human corruption in it. And so like, do you think kind of, I mean, it seems to me like he's basically admitting that the Quran is not infallibly preserved, that there's sort of, you know, you can't claim that it's been infallibly preserved, kind of. And so I don't know, do you think like he has any kind of room to sort of still hold on to, like, I know, Quran chapter 15 verse 9?
This list is amazing. I love this list. Oh no,
sorry. Yeah, keep it there. Sorry. So he's saying that the Quran does not equal Qira'at, that every letter. Yeah, he's actually saying that every letter in the Quran is from the divine. That's a false myth. The Rasam never influenced the recitation of the Quran. That's another myth. Yeah, that nobody ever criticized the Qira'at. The Maqsadi Tabari definitely did. Rasam is divine. No, it changes. In fact, the copy sent between the.
So these are the myths, according to him, right?
Yeah.
The myths.
So the Rasam is divine. In fact, there's about 49 or 50 scribal errors between the Osmanic codices as well. There's not one Osmanic copy because there are a bunch of copies sent to different cities. Ibn Abu Dawud's Kitab himself is full of weak and unacceptable narrations, therefore it can be dismissed in most part. Now, this was a thing that actually Salafis keep bringing up a lot, and I've heard this one narration they bring, and they say that Abu Dawood, the father of Ibn Abu Dawud, said that my son is like weak and Dajjal, or don't take the stuff from him. Not exact quote from me there, but something along the lines that his own dad says that his son is a liar. But the problem is with the variants reported in Kitab al-Masahif and some of the other literature like Itqan al-Faris, we actually, when we open the lower text of the Son of Quran, some of them do match with what was reported. So in fact, that gives more veracity to the idea that yes, these companion codexes did in fact exist, and there is truth to these narrations in Kitab al-Masahif, because there's just too numerous of them, right? Then somehow later scholars got right what early scholars got wrong. And one of the interesting things is that some of the readings, like the reading of Hamza was actually criticized as a bid'ah, and one of the worst readings. And I think Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal criticized it clearly. But then about a century later, a few years later, that same thing, the Qira'ah that was bid'ah and weak and not nice, ended up becoming divine and canonized. So this is the level of subjectivity going on and whatnot. That Ibn Masud never had a spat with Osman over Zayd, the Masahif and the Quranic chapters. That is exactly what we talked about, that Ibn Masud was in fact very clearly and explicitly unhappy with Zayd being told to, codify the Quran, and it's a Hadith in Tirmidhi. And then the last point, that the Quran we recite in Salah is based on Qira'at that are mutawatir and no less will do. So here he said, like we were discussing with the Qira'at we have today, the idea that they're mutawatir is a myth.
And even the Rasam being divine is a myth? So he's saying even the skeleton...
Yeah. I mean, at this point, like,
you wonder, like,
what is left?
Yeah. It's interesting how he put it backwards. Like, it's all these are, like, the way he put it, it's not like a criticism on the Quran, the way he put it. It's just like it's hidden in this, like, oh yeah, these are myths we need to debunk. Like, almost like, yeah, I believe all these things. But if you just said it the other way around, it would be more like an attack on the Quran. It feels like an attack on the Quran.
Yeah, totally.
There's no way, like, if Quran chapter 15 verse 9 says we are the protector of the Quran, or we are the preserver of the Quran, and if that's meant to be God speaking, then either kind of sort of it means that if you're going to say that the Quran isn't perfectly preserved, infallibly preserved, then you have to say that kind of either God isn't the author of the Quran, or that this God is sort of not infallible, that this God isn't omnipotent. So
yeah, this is also a problem for Quranism too, isn't it? Because the Quran doesn't mention the...
One of the biggest problems is if you do not have that hadith of the ahruf, the Quran's variants cannot be justified at all.
No, it's the same issue with Shiism. In Shiism, and the Sunnis will say this very proudly, Quran doesn't mention 12 imams. So the Quran doesn't mention Ahruf either, right?
Yeah. And one of the things, like, nobody knows what Ahruf are, because like Dr. Shadi Nasser will straight up tell you they're a mystery. There's like 40 opinions on what they possibly might be.
That was a beautiful point you made about even the companions didn't know. We'll have to add that to tomorrow's video.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for your call, James.
Thanks.
Call back if anything else comes up that's interesting. All right, so yeah, the next point I want to talk about is and by the way, this one verse in the Quran means if the Quran's not preserved, it's false. The Quran sets itself up right here to fail if it's not preserved.
Yep.
Because you could have said, well, it doesn't have to be you just need the meaning. You just need the general meaning. But because the Quran claims to be preserved, now you have to preserve it. Or else it's dead in the water. It made a false statement, right?
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that like there's some variants that conflict the meaning quite severely and lead to direct actually have. I'll just give one example, and this one's gonna be from the modern Quran, okay? So the verse that talks about you doing wudu, right?
Yeah.
It has the normal reading, I think, goes about arjulakum ila al-ka'bayn, and then the other one goes about arjulikum in the Sufi Quran. So one reads as wash your feet till the ankles, and the other one goes as wipe your heads and your feet. So this verse is exactly what divided the Shia and Sunni over if the washing or wiping the feet. And in fact, you can find this justification from Shia websites as well. There's another interesting one. These are in the Hadith as well. So Ibn Mujahid actually told that the fasting verse that talks about how many days you fast for, I think, is a khayana al-yamina, some khayana, some breaking of an oath. So the standard reading just says fast 3 days, and many scholars say that, oh yeah, you can do those 3 days split up, doesn't matter. But in the variant reading, and this is from Imam Malik's Muwatta, okay, it says it has an extra word, mutatabbi'a, or something like that, which means it adds the phrase consecutively. So this reading leaves you no room to not fast 3 days consecutively. You have to fast 3 days consecutively. In fact, I'll try to find that hadith quickly. That's very important because Ibn Mujahid is the same guy who was the canonizer of the Qira'at, the 7 Qira'at, right? Okay. Let's look for the hadith. Oh yeah, so sorry, just let me find the exact one. All right, I found it. I'll share my screen. And sorry about that. It took a while, but here we are. It's Imam Malik's Muwatta. So Yahya related to me from Malik that this guy, I was at Mujahid while he was performing tawaf around the Kaaba, and the guy asked whether the kafara, the compensation for that had to be fasted consecutively or it could be split up. I said to him, yes, they can be split up if the person so wishes. Okay, but on the other hand, Mujahid says he should not split them up because in Ubay ibn Ka'b's recitation, they are referred to as 3 consecutive days. Qira abi Ubay ibn Ka'b salasat ayyamim mutatabbi'at. This is an initial phrase found in that recitation that changes the meaning. So again, I'm trying to say that these are conflicts in meaning. Now, one says you have to fast 3 days. The other says you can split them up. You cannot reconcile this. You either say one or the other, or you can then use a third option saying that the mutatabbi'at was abrogated, but you can clearly see that Mujahid actually thought it wasn't abrogated and still supposed to be acted on, and it was still found in the recital of Ubay ibn Ka'b. So like I said, there are so many holes. You can keep going and going. There's other verses where I think 33:6, where is a variant of it says that the wives are actually the mothers of the believers, but it also at the very beginning adds that Muhammad is their father, right? But then that verse, that part was Abdullah was removed actually, and is not found in the recital anymore.
You know, it'd be interesting to have a whole show discussing the implications of if they would have left it in there, eh?
Oh yeah, we could sit down for hours, man. There's like in the modern Quran, there's about 40, 50 variants. Then in the Sana manuscript, I don't even know, man. Like it's every page has a variant. Like I can't even begin to catalog that.
So
then there's other manuscripts like the Topkapi one, then some work from Dr. Brubaker. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I said I want to get to the Apostate Prophet Mohammad Hijab debate before we finish. And I just want to say thank you. I'm not going to mention the name because I don't know if she wants to mention the name, but got a donation for the 2 Abdullah show. So you can also donate via the link. I'm just going to paste it one more time with Super Chat. This individual said, love when Gondal's on the show. Hope he's on more often, and $15 donation. So thank you to
thank you so much.
Person who just donated, probably ex-Muslima. I won't mention the name because it's sent throughout the PayPal. So anyways, yeah, thank you for that and for the support of the show. Now I want to talk about the debate. I mean, we talked a little bit about the whole deport apostates thing. What do you think about the whole, like, what happened, how they, tricked him? Do you want to explain what happened?
Yeah, I mean, what they did was Adam Saleh. So let's backtrack further. Where Apostate Prophet wanted to debate Mohammad Hijab. Then there was a back and forth. The debate didn't go through. Mohammad Hijab started saying that you should jump off a building, kill yourself. That then kind of blew up with the Quran thing, and he had the meltdown, harassed our wives and whatnot. Adam Saleh made a video about him, then took it down, and in which he was like yelling like a monkey, you're ex-Muslim, Allahu Akbar, whatever.
Yeah. So before that, sorry, one thing you missed is Introverted Smiles had actually made a video as well, and Adam Saleh had responded to Introverted Smiles saying, "Oh, you brought me closer to Allah." Typical Adam Saleh style, kind of like making fun of him. "Oh, you think you're ex-Muslim? Yeah, you made me better Muslim because of you guys." And I actually responded to that Introverted Smiles video, and it was from that video where Adam Saleh said, why don't you come on my show? He had actually roasted, Introverted Smiles some years before and kind of made fun of him and stuff like that. But this time he said, "I want to talk to you." So I think Intro knows kind of like how Adam Saleh operates. So he just ignored it. But, Apostate Prophet said, "Okay, I'll come on your show." Maybe he doesn't want to come on your show. "I'll come on your show." He made this nice, polite, respectful thing saying, "You know what? A lot of the things that Ali Dawah is saying, I don't think you actually know these things about Islam." And in the debate, one of the first things those guys said is, "We don't know anything about Islam." They admitted they don't know anything about Islam, but yet they're saying you don't know anything about Islam either. You're an ex-Muslim.
The irony is like,
and it's like, so all Apostate, I liked the video Apostate Prophet made. Ridwan made a nice video saying, "Adam, let's have a conversation and let me tell you why I left Islam. And, let's just talk about it." Adam Saleh made this like mocking video saying, you shaitan, like he was calling him a shaitan, and said, "You think I'm gonna, basically side with you? Why don't you come?" And then he made an insinuation that, "Come to Speaker's Corner. We just want to talk, wink, wink." Like basically we want to talk, but we don't want to talk. And then after that, that's when this whole thing sort of happened. And yeah, so you want to continue from there?
Yeah, so I remember after that Ali Dawah made a reaction video to Adam Saleh's video, and then in that video he went crazy saying, apostate should be killed, and we are proud of that, and we'll be watching. I mean, what the hell?
And he said, yeah, exactly. Not just that, we will watch you guys being killed. We are proud of this law. Again, right? Of course, they have the typical disclaimers that we're not talking about Britain. We're not talking about killing people in Britain. And I personally think the whole calling the police on this thing, I think it goes too far, and it's not going to work because this is free speech and they're allowed to say what they want. If they want to say in our religious books, we're allowed to do that. That's how they'll put the disclaimer. So they're not talking about Britain. So you can't arrest them because they're just.
What was funny was Adam Saleh went underneath that video, Farid Leaks calling for the death of apostates, and said, "Allahu Akbar." I mean, dude,
yes.
What are you thinking?
Yeah, so this is the bizarre, weird thing about these pop Muslim celebrities, YouTubers. They do everything un-Islamic you can imagine. Yet they're appealing to Islamic sentiment now. It doesn't. It's so weird. And actually, you know, we were talking about this. His ex-girlfriend mentioned that this is something he does. That he appeals to, like he does these things, and then he appeal to the Muslim audience, and you know, he comes to, like, he gets paid big money to show up at Muslim events. Like there's a Muslim event called Muslim Fest that, you know, he showed up and there was like 5,000 plus people here, mostly young hijabi girls, screaming and crying, and like they mobbed him, man. He had to like leave with like protection. They were like jumping on him and this and that. Like
Oh
this
yeah,
guy,
and the Dawah man with the microphones.
what happened? Oh no, that's a different one. That's in UK. I'm talking about in Canada too. Like, I mean,
Oh, okay.
this guy goes, he gets big money for showing up at these Muslim events. So he wants to keep this Muslim persona, you know, not unlike the hypocrites of Saudi Arabia, that on one hand they claim to be the chief guardians of the holy mosques, but on the other hand they're like these, like, you know, they go and party in Bahrain and drinking alcohol, and I'm not even going to talk about, you know, the like the things they're doing. Everybody knows they're doing, but on the surface they're the righteous Muslim leaders, the protectors of the Islam, you know, the keepers of the Kaaba and the Haramain and this and that. And the Prophet said you have to obey, according to the hadith that's probably made up, you have to obey them as long as they pray. They can be these, like, you know, perverted whatever behind the doors, but in front of the that's what Adam Saleh is doing now. Isn't that what you're doing, Adam Saleh? We see what you're doing.
Well, actually, just to give more context, his girlfriend had like an Instagram live, I think with another girlfriend. There's like two girls.
Oh, there's a lot of girlfriends there, eh? Like,
Yeah.
Toba. Not supposed to be dating.
Adam Saleh, I'll recite the a verse for you in my beautiful voice for you. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't go near zina. Don't go near adult.
These are just his friends. They're not his girlfriends. They're not doing
Well,
it.
anyways, what his girlfriend was going to say, she said like their personal feuds, the stuff aside, he said that whenever he does something bad and he gets caught and whatever his personal drama, he tends to levitate back towards Islam. And this happens over and over again as a pattern. So he'll start making videos about, like, you know, Muslim stuff, more Islamic stuff. Like suddenly he's talking to Dawah man, Ali Dawah, Mohammad Hijab, whatnot. So
thank you, ex-Muslims in Norway. Thank you guys. Thank you so much to your organization and the work that you're doing. And
thank you
you know,
so much. We appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah.
Stay safe. You're near Sweden, I've heard.
Yeah.
Going on there. So
we can talk about that next. We'll talk about that next.
About the debate we were talking about, like I didn't appreciate like how they were tricking him into thing. And I mean, you can try to be like this and think that you've won it, but I mean, you're trying to catch this person off guard. You're going 3 against 1, and I mean, I've watched 20 minutes of their debate. I couldn't go past it because the guy, you wouldn't let him speak more than 5 seconds. And like this, it starts off with just abuses and stuff. There was never a debate. It was not even just a yelling match. Point scoring. So
if somebody would call me up for a debate and then they're calling me names, they kept saying Apus. Like Adam Saleh, he said, "Oh, I didn't know your name's not Apus." Give me a freaking. You saw his channel. You prepared for this. You planned this ahead of time with Smile to Jannah, with Slim, with Mohammad Hijab, and who knows who else in Aida, Hamza Soetis, and I don't know who else is involved in this. You're telling me you didn't know his name is Ridwan? You kept calling him Apus. I would have told him right there, you're going to be disrespectful to me on your platform, I'm leaving. I'm sorry. If you can't have basic decency for me and you want to have a conversation, you're inviting me to your platform, this is how you treat me? Is this a Muslim etiquette? Like, this is how you guys... I would have just said, I'm done. You know what? I can't talk to you.
You know what would have been ironic if because they called hijab, Apostate Prophet would have called me.
Yeah. I would, like, he should have had a friend in his back pocket too.
Yeah,
right?
But like I said, he wasn't trying to be slimy or sneaky. He was giving these people the benefit of the doubt, and I actually thought they might want to just have a discussion. It didn't go that way. No, like there are so many ways you could have just shown hijab. Like if he would have brought that apostate point up, I would have opened 3-4 fiqh books, opinions of scholars, and then tell them you condemn this guy killing apostate. And at that point, the Salafis would eat them alive by the end of the debate.
Which is what's happening now, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I want to say that, yeah, the whole thing was so unfair. I mean, you know, like, first of all, Mohammad Hijab had unlimited time to prepare for this. Apostate Prophet was told they're not going to invite him. They said, we're not going to do it. And then they sprung it on him, and he showed this message where they said, okay, we're going to go live in 30 minutes. So, like, that's not fair. He didn't have the time to mentally prepare. He wouldn't have even probably agreed to talk to Mohammad Hijab after what Mohammad Hijab did. You know, all of the sexual, vulgar, explicit, disgusting, you know, veiled language. It wasn't rape threats. It wasn't like, it was actually just nasty things he was saying, right? Okay, like, frankly speaking, there's nothing he said that was illegal. It was just disgusting. Okay, it was disgusting, and it was like if someone asked, you know, like, and you know, some you know, I'm not going to say what it was, but someone said, well, he was just asking questions. Like, it's like if I said, is it okay if, you know, I F your mom and you watch? Is that like a question you ask people?
And then you constantly harass not one person, like 3, 4, 5 people.
And you put a picture of these individuals, these family members, and you asking, like, it doesn't, like, it's disgusting.
To counter and flip it, imagine if I start posting pictures of hijabi women or women in niqab, and then you leave sexually explicit comments on it.
Dude,
imagine what would happen.
Yeah, like, I don't even say anything. All I've said, and I've used this language before, and, you know, maybe some people will disagree with me, but I said hijab, putting women in hijab is like wearing a bag. It's like you're putting them in bags. And some people said this is dehumanizing language. I said, no, I'm talking about the misogynistic clothing that is put on Muslim women. And, you know, they also voluntarily wear it because they're told this is what they have to do. It's a sacrifice they make. I'm not talking about the hijabis. The hijabis, I do not, you know, that's their choice. And I respect and I will defend their right to wear hijab, because I think should be up to them. And I've actually made a bunch of videos defending Muslim women's right to wear hijab. But I think the clothing is misogynistic. It's awful. And I hate it. I hate hijab. I just hate it. And I've done this, and Muslim men get all riled up. You're right. If you would just say one thing about a hijabi woman, they would be like freaking war against us, right? Like, I don't even know what they would do. They would just freak out because they have this like white knight savior complex, which has come across against my wife too. When, you know, when my wife was Muslim and they were saying, you know, this evil ex-Muslim is, you know, and there's been certain prominent apologists that have spoken about my wife and said, like, look what he did to her. Like, he's ruined her life, and they want to save her and all that. And it's just like, you know, get off your horses, man. Like, you know what I mean? She doesn't need to be saved. She knows what she's doing. And same with like anyone else out there, right? Like, if they might accuse us of doing the same thing for Muslim women. I'm not trying to save. This is just my opinion that hijab is a bad thing. They're most welcome, and I respect the right. I totally will even not just respect the right to wear. I will fight for the right to wear and not be abused, not be discriminated. Basically, to have a job. Now niqab is a different story. Now, if you want to talk about niqab, that's just, we can, like, I will fight niqab. But like hijab, you know, if they want to wear it, they can wear it. It's up to them at the end of the day, right?
One of the things I wanted to add, a subtle point, was it's not that we are criticizing the literal piece of cloth that's covering your head or your body. That's not the point, because people cover and like, in fact, historically, women used to cover their hair, and these things changed through society. In fact, hijab, niqab, veiling goes back to 3,000 years, thousands of years before Islam, actually. The point is the historical and the theological connotation attached to this action, because there's a psychological aspect people mostly ignore. Is Muslim women are told, when they say they have a free choice to wear the hijab or not, it's not really a free choice when you have the threat of hell hanging over your head, because it's a major sin. And a lot of people have said that if you die, some scholars have said if you die outside your house without in the condition of hijab, you'll be exposing your awra and you die, and you can go to hell because of that. I've read these kind of things. So you might think they have the solution, but there's so much theological coercion around it. And then when you look at the history surrounding the hijab, it's used for separating women from slaves, and then the sexualizing of women. And
putting on kids even.
yeah, like it's that's the problem that happens. And that, like, I mean, if you're wearing a mask and you're wearing a balaclava and you're wearing a niqab, aesthetically they're very similar. It's just that something holds, the symbol has a history behind it that cannot be ignored. You can champion the hijab here as, yeah, women want to wear freedom of choice, go for it. But then you have to also be fair to the women that are forced in Iran.
Yeah.
Are dying and in jail because they are literally taking their scarves off. So that's the thing, right? And a lot of times we have this liberal fantasy with this Islamic narrative that we're constantly pushing, and it's kind of getting a little bit ridiculous at this point, you know?
Yeah, and it's not, the masks that we're wearing a practical, sort of barrier for germs. They have a use and they're applied on men and women, like masking laws that you have when you go out in public in Canada, and there's many places that have laws now. When you're in a supermarket, you have to wear a mask, both men and women, not only women. So this is different. This is not, and this is a temporary measure. Nobody's saying, men are, naturally attractive and seductive and have to cover their faces or cover their hair because they're like going to provoke sexual thoughts on the others. Like it's totally different, right? Like the intention behind the temporary measure of masking right now is related to the health crisis we have, and it's not the same thing. So yeah, women can wear niqab now and they're comfortable with it, that's fine. Is just like with the other mask. Even outside of that, we can talk about niqab as a world.
Here's an interesting thought experiment. Because of global warming, the temperatures are rising everywhere. In the next 10 years, like the Middle East is going to get even hotter than it is in a lot of the parts of the world. So does it even make sense that Allah instated this hijab for all times to come? Because at that point, like, like if it's really hot, putting women in that may cause them serious problems or problems like overheating and whatnot. As a logical inference, you can say, yeah, okay, it makes sense, maybe let loosen up and not be as strict about the hijab. But because Islamic morality is so static on this issue, most of the scholars in traditional Islam, they'll be like, no, you cannot let this obligation go. You have to cover yourself from this to this, except hand and face and whatnot.
Yeah, I think there's more we can say about this, but let's just I want to talk about Sweden. That's the last thing. Before we talk about that, I think especially you can answer this question. Why is vigilantism and honor killing such a huge problem in Muslim countries like lynch mobs in Pakistan?
To be frank, man, I'll be really honest. I'll give a very unapologetic answer to what I feel the problem in Pakistan is and countries like this. So Pakistan and India and that region has a severe problem with malnutrition. And in fact, about 40% of the kids born under 5 in Pakistan are stunted growth. And what happens is that initially in the younger years of your development, there are what you call critical stages of development or critical periods. So if you don't develop or get your brain stimulated enough in those critical periods, you cannot develop that skill at all. For example, if you don't learn to speak before the age of, let's say 5, you'll never be able to learn to speak. And there's these cases where these children were neglected, locked up in rooms for 13 years in a basement, living with cats and whatnot, that happened. So Pakistan suffers from a huge problem of lack of education, firstly, then stunted growth in a lot of the populace. It's a big problem.
Cousin Mitch.
17% is the number in Sri Lanka and in the region, and Pakistan is at 40, and India is touching almost 50%.
Stunted growth?
Sorry?
Stunted growth?
Yeah, and malnutrition in children under 5.
Malnutrition and also cousin marriages as well, repeatedly.
Yeah. So these things coupled with that, it leads to, like, I mean, to give a few, IQ tests aren't an objective measure of intelligence, but if you were to analyze the average IQ, like Pakistan has an IQ of 82, and that's 2 points off, or in certain places in North America to be special, to go to a special school. Yeah, this Pakistani people are just, the society is living as if they're 200 years in the past. Kind of, I don't know when it's going to change, but if it does change, it won't be an easy revolution. It will definitely be a bloody revolution, because these mullahs that tout the blasphemy law, they're not going to back down. And I mean, I'll give you a name, like a person I know that's been going nuts. This guy called Shahir Selvi. He's the son of this army guy, and he's president of the Youth State Parliament of Pakistan. And he goes to literally every rally. He has interviews with the guy who shot the the mentally ill person who's claiming to be a prophet in Peshawar, Pakistan. He's interviews with him. He promotes vigilantism, and like nobody does anything, right? He'll literally go to graveyards and say, "Destroy these graves because these are the graves of Ahmadis and whatnot."
Jeez.
Yeah,
I was gonna say a problem with Pakistan as well is because it has state level enforcement and support for like vigilantes is still legal. Like the Salman Taseer case, he was actually executed, so the state did kill the guy, but
he's a hero. Yeah.
He's a hero, but the vigilantism has popular support. So in some cases the guy will be killed, but in some cases, the police, unless it gets to a level of, I think at a local level they can get away with it, right? The local police won't do anything. They won't necessarily, unless it gets international, sort of attention. But yeah, do you want to add anything, last final words on that? Because we only got 10 minutes left. I want to talk about Sweden.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sweden. I mean, Pakistan, honestly.
Yeah, we can go on and on about Pakistan. We talk about so much. Okay, so let's talk about Sweden. People are asking what's going on in Sweden. So supposedly, I haven't confirmed this, but there's some news that said there was some two boys that were like sexually abused or something. And I don't know if this is connected to that, but Swedish boys. And then because of that, or maybe not because of that, I don't know, this far-right group decided to make a video of burning the Quran. And because they did this and they uploaded to YouTube, it has like 15,000, 20,000 views or something. Some people in the Muslim community they have like gone crazy and they're like burning buildings and shouting Allahu Akbar and like it's crazy, right? So that's basically what happened. And if you want to know our thoughts on it, I was having a bit of a Twitter war today about that. I was kind of upset. I was really upset yesterday when I saw what happened, and I was like thinking, I basically said, these guys are taking, it's like a tinderbox. They're causing, I said they caused this far right group, anti basically immigration, basically pro-white nationalist group wants to kick out all of the immigrants and whatever. And so they did this to kind of cause this situation. Now, I probably shouldn't have put it in that way because I was very upset and I felt like, this was a very dumb thing to do. Now, at the same time, because I said this, people are kind of thinking like, are you against blasphemy? But I'm not. I'm pro-blasphemy. The thing is, it's not black and white, right? Like just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something, right? And, what do we want to achieve, right? When we do something like that, right? What they want to achieve is clear. I mean, they're trying to, make the situation basically explosive. They're trying to force the hand of militants to basically do these crazy things so they can like then raise get this basically the far right, whether it's the Muslim far right, the ones who are doing these jihadist attacks, or the far right of these white nationalists or these people that are anti-immigration, whatever, they both want an unstable situation. That's what they thrive off, right? And even the far left, actually, Antifa and these guys, they're like also breaking buildings and they want to see the world burn, right? Us people in the middle, we're trying to keep a peace. I mean, it's ironic that like people like me and Gondal, like we've done more to fight radicalization than these far right people have done in their whole lives. In like a few years of work that we've done, we've made such an impact on the world, on the Muslim community, on people. We've helped so many people leave Islam. We've helped, me and you both talked to a guy that was in Syria that said he saw the work that we did and he doesn't want anything to do with Islam anymore, or at least with.
Oh yeah, that guy. Oh, wow, yeah, I remember him. I'm not gonna mention more details though.
Yeah,
but,
like
wow,
you've talked to people that the people you've helped and his Sultan have helped, and these people could have joined freaking Taliban. Like and they're telling I'm being told that I'm like I don't even have any words left. Like we just don't want to see the world burn. We don't want to see the world burn. We want stability so that we can do our work. Put it in the terms of while there's a like the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, I'm thinking of Islamic examples. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah, they were all mad because the companions were mad because Muhammad, didn't get to go for Umrah, and the companions didn't go for Umrah. But during that phase, Islam expanded. During the peace phase, they won so many converts, and they got more and more strong. We want to do the same thing now in reverse. We want a peaceful coexistence so that we can continue to fight these bad ideas. We don't want to destabilize and cause these jihadis to go and kill people and cause more, basically, instability in the world. What do you think? What do you think about this world situation and what happened? And again, I'm not condemning burning the Quran, just to be clear. They had every right. If it's their Quran that they bought, they have every right to burn it. But that doesn't mean that at this time and place, this is a wise thing to do. I don't think it was a wise thing to do. I don't think it achieved whatever. I don't know what their goals maybe, but from my perspective, I was upset because I don't want to see people getting hurt over this. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So my view is that there's a time and place for everything. Obviously, this is a valid way of expressing yourself, a valid form of protest. But like you said, it's not the appropriate time. And the thing is, like, a lot of people, they're very emotional and they don't have a lot of nuance and they don't have a lot of foresight or what their actions might actually entail. But at the other side of the spectrum, I'll give the other argument that the Quran literally insults everybody that doesn't agree with Islam in the most vilest ways. And ex-Muslims, kuffar, it says you're dogs, donkeys, monkeys, apes, pigs, deaf, dumb, blind, losers, animals, worse than animals, failed, cursed, liars. Yeah, you can keep going and whatnot, right? After hurling all these insults and whatnot and torturing us unimaginable torture in hell, and then all the misogyny in the book and all the harm that it's caused, I can see some people wanting to burn this in protest, and I have done that too. I'll be explicit about it. I'll be honest. Like, they're one of my friends. Like, I know a person. He's in jail. He's put on death row because of blasphemy in Pakistan. So I was very angry because I know the person. I can't explain more details, but there's a couple of my friends from high school who are actually stuck in Pakistan, are on the run because of this. So I can see why people, what I did was I rolled a joint and wrote Surah Ikhlas on it, and I smoked it. And I explicitly said this is a form of protest because I'm standing up against it. But like I said, there's a time and place for everything. So I see the prospects of it, because Muhammad also himself did it. I'll give you an example from Muhammad broke the idols. He was known as the breaker of idols and whatnot. Abu Bakr would curse the like, even Mohammad Hijab, he showed you the Hadiths to justify his behavior. Go suck the clitoris of the god of the Meccans. Then Muhammad was obviously constantly directly insulting their gods. But then take the story of Abraham. He took a stick and broke down all the idols, and then gave the stake to the biggest idol and said, "Oh, I don't know who broke it. Ask that guy." It's a form of mockery. In fact, it's literally damage of property, and we would be arrested for this if you went into a temple and did this today in Canada or any country. It's just mischief, damage to property and whatnot. But Allah, and then what happened? Abraham was thrown in the fire, and the fire didn't burn him. But because of the same logic, whereas the people throwing Abraham in the fire really wrong, killing him, kind of like what Ali did with those atheists by burning them. This time they burned. Right? So there's both sides of the coin. Obviously, myself, I don't really do these kinds of things a lot. It's because it doesn't take the direction of the discourse in any positive way. It just is more of like a protest and reaction. Because if you're trying to have a discussion with the Muslim and you try to rip the Quran in their face, you're provoking them and antagonizing them on purpose. So if then after you expect to have a discussion with them and expect them to not yell at you, it's also unrealistic, right? So you have to expect the back and forth.
I think there's different levels of blasphemy as well. I mean, every single thing we do, by the way, me and you do, is blasphemy. And this is kind of like ripping up books, peeing on books. This is like an extreme version of it. I mean, there's the example of okay, so before I get into this, I'm just going to say one more thing. The people that set fire to the Quran, they did this to incite Muslims. But we need to ask, as a friend, a mutual friend Sharik said, why are Muslims so easy to incite? Like, why this was so predictable what was going to happen? I mean, these guys knew exactly what they were doing. They knew Muslims were going to freak out and blow up shit. But why are they so quick to do such things? I mean,
in fact, it doesn't even make sense. Like in Pakistan, like YouTube was banned, and then those cartoons came out. Like I remember, I was in school, and like our school had to have like these bunker style 20 feet blocks put up because people are throwing stones and stuff, and there's riots going on. The embassy is being burned and whatnot. The Danish cartoons and stuff, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So and it's always I've noticed that if you criticize other religions like that, like you can criticize Hindu gods, make cartoons of them, or Jesus, like Family Guy does it all the time, or South Park does it all the time. Do you see Christians running to the office of Comedy Central or South Park and shooting it up like Charlie Hebdo was shot up?
Yeah, I don't think though that shoving it down the throats is going to make it normalized. I don't think so. I just don't think that. I think you need to reach like you need secular enlightenment. You need enlightenment values to reach a society. Like this is a difference between a top-down approach versus a bottom-up approach. A bottom-up approach is what I'm aiming for, which is we teach people, we do blasphemy. We say Muhammad was all of these terrible things. You know, satire, we support satire, we support all of these things. But not necessarily to, you know, we can do like draw Muhammad Day or whatever. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that's going to achieve, because even things like, for example, that movie that was made about the gay Jesus, I didn't get a chance to make a video about it. There was a movie made about a gay Jesus, and they got death threats by Christians. There was a, you know, the piss Christ.
Oh, yeah. On Netflix, right?
On Netflix, yeah. And then there's also the piss Christ thing that was done in, I think, in the 80s or 90s. That guy got tons of death threats, and the piss Christ in the museum, it was smashed. People came and vandalized it. They threatened not just the artist, they threatened the museum as well. I just don't think people are ever going to be comfortable when you take the most sacred symbols and you shit on them, either literally or not. I think they're never going to be.
Daniel Dennett said that there's no easy way to tell people that their whole life is a lie.
Yeah, and so
there's just no easy way.
The top-down approach is you force it on them and you shove it in their faces and you say, we're gonna do this. I just don't. It's just a strategy thing. I'm not, you know, at the end of the day, yeah. And James is saying, I think a many-pronged approach is best. And exactly. So there's going to be a many-pronged approach. I just want to say though, to those people, I'm sorry, I'm very emotional about this. The people that are saying we need to do this shit, please, you go to Sweden and you do this yourself, and you face and you deal with the consequences when people are throwing rocks at your houses. Like, don't sit on the other side of the world and say, yeah, we need to burn Quran, while those people's houses are burning, while you sit in your freaking couch eating popcorn and laughing on YouTube, you know, making edgy comments about burning Quran. Like, shut up. Like, you go and protest, man. You go and face them off.
Like, is somebody, if for example, you're 30 years old and it's the same thing. If you know that if you tell something stupid to a 10-year-old kid, he's gonna do it. Why would you then do it on purpose and be like, oh my God, this 10-year-old kid did this? Like, this is
yeah, it is infantilizing what we're doing, but it's a reality of life. And even Peter Singer, the famous utilitarian ethicist, in his conversation with Sam Harris, was saying, when Sam Harris asked him, like, about the cartoon, should we do it? And he said no, because of the consequences of like what happens. I don't know if the world is ready for that. And again, it's just honestly, guys, we're not saying blasphemy is wrong. We're freaking blasphemers. We are more vested in this fight than anybody else.
I feel that the jihad of the pen is bigger than the jihad of ripping books.
Frankly speaking, you guys, like anyone that's condemning us for saying this, we are more vested in this fight than anybody else. If anybody's going to be killed by jihadi terrorism, it's me, it's Gondal, it's us. Like, we're going to be the first ones.
I mean,
so we're not saying this. We're not saying this lightly, you know. Like, anyways, it's just a difference of strategies at the end of the day, right? So
here's the funny thing. I see a lot of Christian people are saying that, you know, yeah, we should burn the Quran. I'll throw one back at you that, you know, blasphemy is one of the biggest punishments and unforgivable sins in the Bible. In fact, if I remember correctly, God killed a baby, I think one of David's sons, as a punishment to teach him a lesson for his blasphemy.
Smash the heads on the rocks. Is that the same verse or is it different?
I don't think that's the same one, but there was something about this.
Yeah.
So the point is, like, you can't say that, okay, my religion's without fault either, because a lot of Christians like doing it, but they don't look back at how they burnt the witches and the whole history with the church executing blasphemers and too. So it's like, hey, don't do it against me, but I can do it against you, you know? So,
and thankfully, you know, those religions have been, you know, what's the word? Like, you know, they've been softened up by secularism, and there's no blasphemy law. Like there's still blasphemy laws in India, by the way, to the Hindu people that are going on about burning the Quran. Like, you know, there's certain things you can't do in India. Like, you can't go and slaughter a cow in 24 out of 26 states. It's illegal to sell, you know, cow meat. There's blasphemy laws in India. There was a actor that said something offensive, and you can be jailed even in India. So let's look at, you know, our own countries as well, not just, you know, all go on about this specific thing. There's blasphemy law needs to be fought in all over the world, in like all forms of blasphemy law. You know, thankfully in the West, it's pretty much gone now, and it's not going to come back, I hope. But we do need to fight, you know, the blasphemy law all over the world, right? Not just in Muslim countries, eh? Neutered. Yeah.
One other point, like I noticed in the comments, was very interesting. Was people like the Charlie Hebdo attackers support them and need to see that such violent reactions won't work in discouraging freedom of expression. Exactly. But at the same time, you have to realize that the people who are doing the attacks are not smart enough to realize themselves. That's the problem.
They don't effing care. They
like
will do it anyways.
You have these teenagers who really want to do something, and you're 25 or 30, and you tell them, no, this is like the stupidest thing you could do. But they will still do it because they lack the capacity to actually realize even.
Exactly.
So here's the thing: when you're dealing with people who are too stupid to realize how stupid they are, you have to get down to their level and build them out instead of yelling at them because they're so stupid. You're just gonna get a stupid reaction back, right?
Yes.
There's, like I said, there's time and place and whatnot, and this discussion can go on like absolute free speech, and you're like, okay, well, you know, like you can say like, okay, well, if you said that, okay, if you can insult the religion, then why can't Mohammad Hijab insult women? I mean, you can say all the hell you want. You're just gonna look like an immature child. That's it. That's the consequence of the free speech you use.
And James has a good point, and actually that was the counterpoint that Sam Harris made to Peter Singer. We cannot bow to terrorism, basically. Like, we cannot make this the justification for why we don't do it. We can still do it, but maybe we just as a secular community, we need to think about how to do these things. I like the idea of a Draw Muhammad Day. It's like a specific day that everybody does it. It's done at the same time all over the world. So who are you gonna kill? Like,
I did something that was so. I feel like when you do mock, I think sometimes try to be creative about it too, right? Like what I did last night was I was just sitting there and I wrote this the Surah Faqaf on a page, and then what I did was I then dipped a tea bag on it to make it resemble a Quranic manuscript, and I ripped it on the sides, and it actually ended up looking really good, to the point where I was just satirizing it on Twitter, saying this is the reading of Abu Hazika bin Bazika from the scribe is Khantaf bin Shantaf. Like, it's nonsense. But the funny thing is, there's actually people who are like, wow, where'd you find this? What's the carbon dating? So I said it's dated to 331 a Chinese year. And there's Muslims who are tagging, no, dude. If people were tagging academics in that thread, oh my Muslims were tagging people like, what is this? I did not know this surah existed. The point is, you gotta be smart about it and you get something out of it, right? And it's like I said, even Muhammad and the story of Abraham, when he mocked, he got something out of it. He demonstrated a point from the mockery, even though I might disagree that way, but
yeah. So, and you don't really have time to get into this, but the real solution to the immigration issue, it's not burning Qurans. It's maybe being more careful about who you allow to immigrate. Why do they allow so many people to immigrate? Because they're not having babies. The Swedes and most of Europe and most of Canada, US, and the West, we're not having enough kids. to maintain the population. So the government, in order to keep the population pyramid constant, where you have a solid base of young people working and a younger, less older people, they have to immigrate. They need immigrants. I mean, that's just how economics works. Study basic economics. I mean, there's a thing to be said that maybe in the future, if you want to look at like a Homo Deus, Yuval Harari sort of future where robots are, taking care, and we have universal basic income, and we're not there yet. So as of now, we need a large base of young working people in order to, and with paying taxes in order to support. And look at Japan. Japan is in crisis now because the healthcare costs are more than the GDP, right? So burning Qurans as a solution to an immigration crisis is just ass backwards.
Yeah,
it's so stupid. Like, immigrants taking your jobs. Immigrants are taking your jobs because you're not. Maybe you guys need to learn some skills to compete with the immigrants.
Well, actually, here's the funny thing I'll tell you. The idea that immigrants take away people's jobs is so ridiculous, because the fact that when immigrants come here, mostly taking Canada for example, most of the people that do move here are firstly very rich, because you can't move here without having a lot of money. Secondly, when they do come here, they're also bringing opportunity for making new infrastructure. Okay, they bring kids. Their kids have to go to school. Who's going to build that school? A guy who already lives in Canada or is employed. Similarly, shopping malls, because the population increases, the demand increase, the revenue comes in. So it's not just that. And then actually, most of the Canadian graduates from universities are from immigrant families. So it's not just that. And then a lot of times, in fact, the skilled workforce has so much deficit that they just need to be fulfilled, and they have to bring people from somewhere, right? So, and these things change with time. Like if a country has this issue, like some countries have very strict immigration policies now. Like take for example, the UK back in the day was much more lax, and now it's the Brexit and whatnot. So
yeah, and someone's saying we're not having kids because we pay for them, it's too expensive. But most of these countries have like huge bonuses for having kids. Like even Canada, I'm not in Europe, but even in Canada, we have Canada Child Tax Benefit. We have universal childcare benefit, and universal. Anyways, there's a bunch of freaking money you get if you have kids. There's basically baby bonuses in most of these countries.
By the
way, immigrants do contribute. If you just look at the stats, on average, they contribute more to the country sometimes than people that are born there. Like, just look at the numbers. But anyways, what were we gonna say?
I just skipped my point anyway. Sorry.
Okay, so anyways, we're sort of done. I think we covered a lot of topics. And you want to add any final words? Thanks everyone for joining us and for this kind of random conversation today.
Oh, I forgot to mention one thing before we end. There's a war going on between Daniel Hakikaju and the Yaqeen Institute. Yaqeen Institute is this big apologetic institute to have Muslims come back to Islam. They have a lot of academics on there. The allegations are that the Yaqeen Institute has severe ties to the CVE, a counter some terrorism thing from the US government, and people that were in the military with terrorism experts are actually members of the Yaqeen Institute. So there's these wild allegations going on, and then Daniel Hakikaju came out with a big refutation and then calling them like reformants and liberal Muslims. And he was then accused of lying by none other than Asadullah al-Andalusi. And he wrote a 200-page book almost documenting the lies of Daniel Hakikaju and his 160 mistakes. But it seems like some other things Daniel actually said were very true. And in fact, it's a big drama going on that side. Scholars being slandered. Then we have I'll summarize the whole drama what's going on. We have Farid Leaks leaking the emails, and he's still fighting and going against Yasir Qadhi, trying to refute him and save himself. Then Yasir Qadhi's interview is still going, causing a lot of problems and doubts in people. The academics are still posting the stuff. Hijab has had a meltdown. He's yelled at people, sexually harassed women, and talked about bondage and whatnot. Did I miss anything? Oh yeah, Adam Saleh was involved. Who invited you? I don't know. Ali Dawah said to kill the apostates. I mean, what is? Well, you know that Yasir Qadhi. What is all this going on? At the
That's
same time,
hilarious.
I'll say one thing. I love Sheikh Yasir Qadhi. I think he's doing a great service for the ummah that inevitably would have been needed to be done in a few years. And I guess he kind of started the process inevitably, either intentionally or unintentionally, but it has opened the door to reform. And I'd like to say this, my concluding remarks, that this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Just to let you know that the variants we have found come from like what 10-15% of the manuscripts most of the manuscripts we found haven't been cataloged. So there's so much more to be found. And it's just gonna grow. I'm getting messages upon messages. Like I got 5 messages today of people telling me how they left Islam tied to this standard narrative has holes in it. Okay, I got 2 messages that, directly Muhammad Hijab's behavior and Ali Dawah's behavior led this person, because they shared the hadith of the sucking the clitoris of the goddess of the pagans. They're like, how could a pious companion do this? And then that led a few Muslims to go down a rabbit hole on sunnah.com and then finding hadith they did not like. And they messaged me saying, what is this? How did I not know this? So the tsunami is coming. In fact, I'll tell you, in Pakistan, it's picking up real fast. And now what we see is like almost all the Dawah boys, they're just kind of, imagine 5 years ago, where was all this ex-Muslim stuff, right? But now all they can talk about is ex-Muslims, whatnot. They're making memes about us, whatever. And you are seeing the fundamental core of Islam being challenged in front of you by not just us, by academics, which is the preservation of the Quran. And I think we're lucky that we're living in these unprecedented times where we actually are lucky that we found companion codex in the 1970s.
Oh yeah.
Which we never had, and we would have never known about all these variants.
And the radio cut and the UV whatever.
UV light and the back text.
Exactly.
So we're very lucky, but what we're seeing is the beginning of the end for, or at least let's say it's the first wave of the tsunami.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. All right, thank you guys for joining. Please do check out the Abdullah Sameer podcast. So I'm going to upload this on a podcast. So those of you who can't sit and watch on YouTube, you don't have YouTube Premium, so you don't get the offline, you don't get the audio only option, and you don't want to have to bother with downloading the videos and all that nonsense. Check us up on Spotify, on whatever podcast app you like to use, Stitcher, iTunes, or whatnot. You can get it on there, and all of the other episodes we did, as well as all the other interviews I did on there as well. So do check that out. Do consider joining the channel. Click join now to become a member and support it. Check out the link that's in the description to support this show specifically as well. And thank you to ex-Muslims of Norway for your very generous donation, and everyone else who gave super chats. Thank you guys and gals for joining us today, for the PayPal donation as well that was done privately. To all of you, we will see you next week on the 2 Abdullahs. I think next week will be hell in Islam. Hell, right? Basically, that's what we're going to talk about.
I think we did the heaven, so let's turn to hell.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. Yeah. It's gonna be all the naughty people. So we're gonna see you guys next week. We don't know yet if it's gonna be Friday or Saturday. We'll see how it goes. See you next week on the 2 Abdullahs. And I think we're gonna do a poll. We're gonna come up with a better name for the show than the 2 Abdullahs. So if you have any ideas, send over your ideas. Leave them in the comments. For the top idea will be chosen, and you will get a gratitude, and we'll mention you for the new name. So thank you to anyone that has any suggestions. Please do send them over, and we'll see you guys next week. Good night. Good morning.
Science Hafiz.
Science Hafiz.